please.
We've already done 5 minutes.
Yes, we have. You're right. 6 minutes, as a matter of fact.
Time is money and we're talking budget.
Yeah. Pardon?
Time is money and we're talking budget.
Time is money. Unfortunately, that isn't always the case. I've done several things. Now in session, welcome members, council, and staff and guests that have arrived and are on our agenda. Attendance, one missing, correct, at the present time. Approval of agenda. And Councillor Coleman moves. Councillor Balma seconds. Any comment? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There required a motion to go into committee of the whole council. Moved by Councillor Pierce, second by Councillor Gatward. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. With, of course, those in attendance. Thank you. Carried. Delegations, etc. And first is Harvey Woods and Sam Sheardown, South Dumfries Nonprofit Housing Corporation, a grant request. We'll hear the amount, no doubt. Please come forward if you're ready and make a presentation to council. You can come over here to the microphone because we want to hear every word that you utter on this matter. Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, councillors and others in attendance. Did I wake you up? I wanted you to hear what I had to say because it's important. Sam Sheardown and I are volunteers, and we're volunteers with the South Dumfries Nonprofit Housing Corporation. I'm chairman, and Sam is the treasurer. And we have a need for money. And the need for money is precipitated by our old elevator, which is 38 years old. 38. And it doesn't always function correctly. As a matter of fact, in the last 3 years, we've had 3 situations where people were stuck in the elevator. Twice the fire department had to come and help people out. And unfortunately, we don't have a phone in the elevator, and the age demographic for our residents is fairly high, probably an average of around 88. That's a good round number. And not too many 88-year-olds carry cell phones. So if someone gets stuck in the elevator, they're stuck for a while. So we have determined to replace the elevator because it doesn't function properly, and because parts aren't readily available for it, because a 38-year-old piece of machinery, the construction of parts was abandoned several years ago. We have 25 apartments in our building, and the Russell Heights is run by a board of volunteers. And essentially, it is owned by the County of Brant. And but we do pay taxes, $27,000 a year in property taxes from that center. There's a handout that each of you received prior to the call to order, and as you can see, there are a number of items that a building condition assessment has determined that will probably have to be done over the next 10 years. And they total a fair sum of money. The elevator construction is going to cost about $140,000, and we had it tendered, and tender has been accepted. The cost is supported. Now, the Nonprofit Housing Corporation does have some funds in reserve. They are determined for emergency situations. The elevator is not necessarily an emergency, but rather a maintenance item. And that's why we are looking for some money. The City of Brantford is making available some money to us, and we are asking you to help us with funding the project. Now, that in a nutshell is really what we have on our agenda, but we're available to you for questions.
Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Three to the presenter. You said the city of Brantford's providing money, that's through social services?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, then that's also from the county, because we fund social
It's
services.
actually from government, I believe, through social services in Brantford. They had turned us down 3 times, and John Wheat managed to strong-arm them, and if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have got that money.
Okay, just so you know, the county and the city share social services. Second question,
The only thing is, they say St. George is too well off, and for that reason, not to look for any money. We're too affluent.
all right. I just want to ask you about this nonprofit housing. The rents themselves, are they not supposed to be the income to maintain this property, pay your taxes, which is for garbage, which is for the police, which is for fire, but also to pay for the heat, the hydro, and also to pay for maintenance and capital upgrades? I'm just what,
It's really affordable housing at this point. We are looking at increasing the rents, but we have 8 of those 25 people that are on RGI, which is rent geared to income.
yeah, no, I read that in your letter, so I'm just, are the rents not high enough to cover the costs, I guess is what I'm asking.
I would say yes. What happened is, in their wisdom, maybe 15 years ago, they had a couple years they could put it up like 4%, and they didn't. Nowadays, we're lucky if we get 1.5 from the rent review board, so trying to catch up, we may have to look at when an apartment comes empty, all of a sudden, we're going to be charging the new person more than the other people. And I will say, the RGIs are only allowed to have a 1-bedroom. If they're getting any grant money, they cannot have a 2-bedroom. And to have a 2-bedroom, you have to have a spouse. But if they pass away, we allow them to remain there until they're gone.
Okay, so I'm just wondering what happens next year or the year after. The furnace goes, you need a roof. Is it going to be the same thing you're going to ask for? Will you be back here? That's what I'm asking. Do you think? Or
At this point in time, I'm going to say no. But if Harvey and I decide not to run it, you get to run it.
yeah, I seen that in your letter too.
And we do not, like, it's totally volunteer. And if you look at that building, it is so well maintained.
Right.
I'll put another plug in for a girl named Brenda McDonald that does the property manager. She's fabulous. She's also a social worker. She keeps everybody getting along. She cuts things off before they become a problem. I'm going to say no to that. I think, like, we're paying about $67,000 in mortgage payments, or I guess it did drop. See, part of the problem with the seniors is what they're getting at the bank on their term deposits, because they don't want to go into stocks. They were old enough that they remember bad things from...
Easy. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, if I could, a couple quick questions. First of all, you state here that the building condition assessment was completed in 2014, and they identified the following over the next 10 years. I'm assuming here the elevator equipment modernization is what we're talking about here, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so has anything else on that list been done?
The vanities.
Okay, so if we flip over the page there and it says for the elevator monitorization information, it says there was 3 quotes. Are those quotes, other than in the middle quote there where it says the cylinder jack is going to be reused, are they apples to apples quotes? So what I'm looking at is a Brant elevator, is that quote, does that include a new cylinder jack?
It does. That was they had to include the cylinder jack. We ended up contacting the city of Brantford to do with how do you proceed with an elevator, and they recommended going with a consultant. And when I contacted National Elevator Consulting out of Brantford, and it was $5,500, it was kind of money I could use, towards the elevator. Do we really need them? And we decided to spend that money because the first thing he did is he said, make sure there's no proprietary equipment. Tyson Krupp, we're going to put the one they quoted in February when the elevator broke the second time. If they put proprietary equipment, you can't get anybody else to service it but them.
Not theirs, right.
So the consultant, Michael Morgenstein, he does all the Brantford, the Gretzky Center. I even think he's done work for the county of Brant to do with elevators. It's been the best money we've spent because we got better quotes because he had them all there at once. He gave them like 4 days' notice. It's next Thursday. Show up at 10 o'clock if you want a quote on it. And I'm happy to say the company that we're awarding it to is a Paris company. They've put in elevators that he's got good feedback from. They're using the same equipment, contracting it. These companies don't make it. There's like one company in Mississauga that supplies all the controls. He's making sure there's no proprietary equipment. They're a young company, and they're pretty hungry.
Okay, and I'm sorry, which one of those?
That's Brant Elevator.
Okay, so it is Brant Elevator.
And
Okay.
they're the one that was selected by the consultant.
Okay.
And normally, he would go back to the incumbent, Tyson Krupp, but there was so much difference between the two quotes that he said it wouldn't be worthwhile. Had it been $10,000, he might have gone back to.
Right, and that's, I appreciate that, because that's why I was asking, there's a $47,000 difference there, right?
Right.
And if we're talking the same equipment and take out the middle one there, because that's reusing equipment that you already had. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the delegation, thank you for all the work you do on the nonprofit housing project out there in Russell Heights. We need good people like you that are community-minded and want to help out, and seniors housing is in short demand, so kudos to both of you. My question is, over the years you've been working with the Brant housing people in the city of Brantford, is that correct?
Yes.
And Mary Ellen, is she your contact?
Yes.
And I called Mary Ellen about this, and a number of days back before we had it initially come forward, and she told me that there was a grant available some time ago, and nobody applied for it. And I'm wondering, did you think she was applying for it, and she thought you were applying for it, and that's why nobody applied for it?
No, and I'm not totally aware of this one.
Okay.
The elevator modernization, we decided to move forward back in February.
February of this year?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there has been no, from Mary Ellen. As a matter of fact, she didn't attend a meeting till just this past November.
Right.
Two different stories.
And I did send emails to her, and I attended one of her educational sessions trying to get FaceTime. And again, it was Councillor Wheat that got the whole thing changed around for us.
Yeah. She told me that Councillor Weed is a
You
great...
have a question, Councillor Gatward?
Yes.
Please, you're getting into a conversation.
Yes, my question is, did you know that Mary Ellen has grant money for you in April?
Yes, 50,000. And that's what Councillor John Wheat got for us. And Willem might have been part of that too, but
Thank you.
And can you tell me why you wouldn't take the money from your replacement reserves to use the rest of the money to fix the elevator? Isn't that what it's for? Replacement reserves?
yes, for capital expenditure. And the money is there, but we're actually looking at, if you look at the information, there's almost 1.4, and it's probably gone up since then, of money that needs to be spent. We did the bathroom vanities in 16, and that was about $25,000 to do all 25 apartments.
Thank you.
Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, just to follow up for clarification, and apologize if you'd already said this. Because this is being used for seniors' accessibility, have you looked at, is there anything you can get accessibility grants?
We had a bunch of grants that were put to me. Heather Bailey helped me and identified a bunch, but every time I went down the road, the fact that they were apartments
Oh.
and not a place where the community could come and use the room, like the church was able to apply because they run fitness classes 3 days a week, and because it was apartments, it didn't support.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? No other questions? Thank you for your presentation. It will be considered by council.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. So the council wish to deal with this request at this time to dispose of it. Councillor Weed, please.
Put on the floor, the grant request was $37,500, so I'll put $37,500.
37,500.
That was, if you go back to the grant request page, for 37.5.
Thank you.
So I'll put
Councillor
that on.
Baumann.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on the motion. Your motion would be that this be approved and placed in the 2018 budget estimates. Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Well, we don't have 37,000 in that budget.
Pardon?
We don't have 37,000 sitting there, so I'm not sure where the money would come from.
Where does all the money come from? Any of the money come from in the budget? Do you not see it? It depends on whether council approves it or not.
Your worship, I could maybe respond to that.
Yes, fine.
As, just to clarify what I think you were saying, and Robin and I discussed this, if council chooses to support some funding for this, it would just go into the budget
Yes.
and be part of that goes onto the base and be part of the amount that
Well,
ultimately
way
gets
I see it
assessed as
exactly.
taxes. Exactly.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak before the put the motion? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier today, I got an email from one of our county employees, and it said that the South Dumfries Nonprofit Housing Corporation is under the umbrella of the city housing until the mortgage is paid off, which is in,
Now, what does that mean, under the umbrella of? I don't know whether that has meaning or not.
well,
What does it mean?
maybe I should clarify for you then.
Please.
We have various agencies within our
I
budget.
know that, but I'm,
And this is an agency that's within the city housing budget. Does that make it more understandable? And they look after South Dumfries. They have some money for them in April, and they, I think because of their reserves, have not given them what they've been asking for this elevator project.
I see.
And so now they're, the city housing, that's their responsibility, in my opinion, not ours. Just like
Oh.
healthcare, it's a provincial responsibility and not ours.
Supposed to be,
Even though
yes.
people still try to get money from municipal coffers for municipal projects. But this is another
I see.
incident where we have outside agencies coming for tax dollars, and I think while they're still under the city housing program, that's where their money should come from, not our Brant County taxpayers. I think in 2021, when the mortgage is paid and they're completely independent, we may want to help them out. But for right now, they can get grant money from the city, and the thing Mary Ellen said to me is, ask about their reserves. And I did. And they have almost $200,000 in replacement reserves. So I'm sorry, I know they do great work. I cannot support the request for that reason.
Councillor Balma, please.
If I could just respond to that. So there's $200,000 in reserves that are going to have to take care of almost $1.4 million worth of work over the next decade. On a $140,000 project, to be asking for just $37,500 does not seem unreasonable to me. It is in effect our building, and we are responsible for it. And I'm pretty sure that our staff is working quite diligently with the board in order to make sure that the building is as sustainable as it can be. As we heard from the presenter tonight, we're kind of caught in a trap with rent control and everything else, and by the population that we serve. And so it'd be easy to say, sure, just jack up the rents, but we can't do that for a lot of these people who are living on fixed incomes. And so for that reason, it's our asset, and they are our people, and I believe that we should help them out. And that's why I'm in favor of this.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. The way I look at this, and something the delegation said there just kind of caught me in the sense that, and it says in here, they're volunteering to do this. If they were to step down, it would come back to us. And if it did come back to us, we would have a $140,000 bill to pay here to fix this elevator, which needs to be done. I don't think they're here because they want to have it done. They're here because it needs to be done. And I agree with Councillor Buma in the sense that, you know, we're talking 37 out of 140, which means, you know, sure, they're getting 50,000 in April to put towards that as well, but there's going to be money taken out of their reserves in order to complete the payment for this elevator. Again, we need to be careful where we go here, because this could turn around and go from 37,000 to 140,000, and then what do we do? Thank you.
Councillor Miller.
You can't really argue with the request. They need an elevator, but my concern is going forward, and something has to be done, because I am concerned that something else will come up and it'll be here next year, but that's next year, so I'd like to see changes there.
So you ended up by saying? Any other speakers? If not, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on then to item number 6. No, just a minute. You can't have preferred. Item 6. Item referred from Corporate Development Committee, Brant Historical Society, request for special 2017 grant of $16,000. During the budget deliberations, budget for 2018, we approved a grant to the Brant Museum of $5,000. That's in place for 2018. What they were here for the other night, they had not received a grant for 2017, and I think we had dealt with that at the time we had dealt with the budget for 2017, and no grant was approved. Now, that is the request, correct? Yes. Any speakers regarding this matter? So it's referred to this committee. Councilor Wheat.
Well, when I look at it, the request in my mind was for 10,000. We did get when we approved 5.
Yes. You're talking about the 2018 grant.
Yes.
That's what we dealt with. They're asking for a grant for 2017, and they did not receive it. And I think that's probably the first year we had never granted any amount of money to the Brantford Museum, as I recall. You can correct me, or the treasurer, if that is the case, treasurer. Thank you. That was the first time we decided not to. of course, the question is, did they apply? Do you wish to speak to that? There may be a question for the treasurer. They were in a state
No,
of chaos. Flex, go ahead.
Through you, they did not apply in
In
2017.
2017. Therefore, nothing. Thank you. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the fact of where they're going with this, but as I've gone through, this is my fourth budget going through, and there's been people that have applied for grants the previous year and people who haven't applied for grants the previous year, and our comment has been, if they haven't applied for a grant, we're not going to ask them if they want a grant. And this makes it even more difficult. They're asking us to go back to a previous year. And I don't think there's any way that we can do that. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but my personal opinion is the grant process for the 2017 budget is gone and closed. We can't be doing that, or all of a sudden we would have, potentially, we would have many others knocking at the door saying, well, you know, I did it a couple of years ago, but I didn't do it last year because I was busy and we didn't get around to it. I think that would be opening up a box that we just can't go in that direction. And as Councillor Weed said, they did ask for 10 and we gave them 5 this year.
Correct. Council can make a decision. Councillor Powell?
When Tim Phillips was here, I got the impression the museum was in bad shape, and he volunteered to step up and try to get things cleaned up and try to get the budget in order. So I wonder with that change of administration at the top, that it got missed because of that situation rather than, you know, what would normally happen with the continuum of the executive director for year after year.
I don't know whether the treasurer was given a reason
No, we
why they
requested to
didn't
send a
or
letter.
not,
We know.
but
To get a grant.
it was
That's what I
in a
would
state
do.
of change completely, and it was closed for a while when they started that. Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we stated a few years ago that if they didn't send a letter of request in, we didn't acknowledge it. So there was no letter of request last year, so that's why it wasn't acknowledged. So I agree, I don't think we should be going back.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, there's no doubt after Mr. Phelps' presentation that they do need help. I couldn't believe when he said they still had knob and tube wiring in the museum. That's very concerning. And so since they've asked for $10,000 in the 2018 budget, and we gave $15,000 to Paris, and I'm not sure on how much we gave St. George, but I would think that it would be a show of support if we changed our $5,000 to $10,000 to help them out, since we don't want to go back to 2017. And I would make that a motion because I think they're trying hard, and Mr. Phelps is a volunteer, as was the previous delegation, and it does have a lot of our early history, as you pointed out. So I guess I would ask for a seconder if anyone's willing to give them an extra $5,000 for 2018.
Councillor Chambers, please.
Could I just ask a clarification? Are you looking at that as an earmark for the special request of 5,000, or just 10,000 for whatever they want to do with it?
Any other speakers?
That was a question of clarification. I'm not sure of the motion.
No,
I'm
I don't,
willing to second it if I understand the motion, but I don't understand the motion.
I don't have a motion. I
Oh,
don't-
yes.
Pardon? What is the motion? Do you have something?
If I might answer Councillor Councillor Chambers' question, my motion was to increase the 2018 grant
Oh, I see.
from 5,000 to 10,000 to assist the Brant County Museum with their, what shall I say, renovations, I guess.
And I think you need to dispose of the request for 2017 in the same motion. It doesn't need to be there, it can be a separate motion, but
Yeah.
it still needs to be dealt with. It would
Yeah,
seem
it could
to
be a
me.
separate motion. I think that would be less confusing.
Councillor Chambers.
The more I get it explained to me, the more confused I get,
Yes,
unfortunately.
sorry about that.
It's my understanding that they've requested $10,000 as a grant toward the Historical Society, and then it's my understanding that they came the other night and asked for a special request, a special grant of $16,000. So your motion basically is to give them $10,000
Instead of the
which-
5.
instead of the 5, which basically is not earmarked for the special purpose that they're requesting the special grant for. And that's why I don't support that particular motion, and I'm not going to second it.
But you are seconding, Councillor? No, you're not. Okay. So would you read the motion that you have, and we'll see if there is a seconder for that motion, to make it a motion.
That the grant award to the Brant Historical Society be increased to $10,000.
There was more to my motion than that.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
Mr. Mayor, I said there was more to my motion than that. I said for renovations, and that was the special project that he came forward with last night, or no.
So the second
When was it?
$5,000
Two nights
is for
ago.
renovations, towards
Yes,
renovations.
for this, I can maybe clarify it for Heather. That the $5,000 grant for 2018 be increased by $5,000 to assist with the special project requested by the museum at the Corporate Development Committee meeting. How's that?
Councillor Powell?
Just to be clear again, I see the 5 to 10. Now, you were talking about the special, which they have mentioned. I guess after the budget's all done, we do have a special fund that during the course of the year, we could give out money to people who come forward. So are those two connected, or are they two separate things that you refer to?
This is all 2018 money.
Please speak to the chair.
This is all 2018 money. It's not left over from 2017.
Pardon?
We've already approved the 5,000, so I would suggest, can we just do that $5,000 be approved for the special grant request in 2018?
Exactly.
Just move that to 2018 instead of
Adding it on?
changing the one we already approved, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor,
If the member accepts.
yes, Councillor Coleman?
That's a good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, they want $26,000. That's what they want. So, first of all, we have to deal with the request, which we haven't done yet from the other night. It was referred to the night. So a motion needs to be put on the floor that we're not either accepting that request for $16,000 or denying it. And then if there's a new motion coming forward to add on for the one that we did here a week ago, then I can understand it. But I will not support what's on the floor right now. We need to deal with the one that was there the other night. And that was the request for $16,000 for 2017, and we haven't dealt with it yet. So I will move that request be denied.
Sorry, I have a motion on the floor.
It's already a motion on the floor.
I have a motion on
Okay.
the floor. Would
I'll
you
withdraw my motion.
withdraw? Councillor Powell, agree? Thank you. The motion is, Councillor Coleman.
That the request for $16,000 for 2017 be denied.
Second by Councillor Baum. Discussion. Any speakers? None? Motion. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Chambers?
Now would be the appropriate time to move that, since we denied the request for $16,000, I'll move that in response to the special request for the 2017 grant, that $5,000 be granted for a special purpose requested.
Thank you. Now, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Miller seconds. Discussion. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've got a huge issue with the year, not the money, but you had stated there that it's a special request for 2017. I think that's going to get us into a whole lot of trouble. It's going to bring potentially people out of the woodwork saying, oh, we want grants for previous years. I would propose a friendly amendment that we up the 2018 by that additional 5 to make it 10. But the 2017, I think we're on shaky ground using that year.
Let me rephrase, if I might, and that might solve the issue.
Please. Thank you.
That would be that $5,000 be granted in 2018 for the special purpose that was requested for.
Special. For special purpose. Now, the seconder, agree with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you have that wording? Do you want to tell us?
That in response to the request for a special grant in 2017, $5,000 be granted in 2018 for the special purpose from the Brant Historical Society.
You agree with the wording? All right, speakers, please, before we put the motion. Councillor Wheat?
Does that affect the original 5,000 in the 2018 budget?
No. No. You have your answer?
Yes, it did, yeah.
Does further discussion by anyone? Councillor Pierce?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I hate to keep coming back to this, but again, we're stating 2017 in that motion, and I'm just, can we word it? No, but Heather just said 17.
Is it there?
I was just referring to that was their request, but I can remove the word 2017.
It's their request.
Yeah, because that 17 was denied, right? So now we're
Yes.
talking about a
Correct.
special for 2018.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay, I'm good as long as there's not 2017 in there.
You
I'm
agree
good.
with the wording?
Yeah, I agree with the wording if it's 2018.
Yes.
Treasurer will speak.
Through you, just a quick question. There was the pot of money at the end of the grants of $5,196 that you have to allocate throughout the year. Is that what you're taking this from, or is this over and above?
You can take it from wherever you want. $5,000, if this motion passes, comes from somewhere, and if you want to put that in the budget from that particular segment, that's fine with me, recognizing that if an additional request comes down the pipe at some time, we can just add money to that anyway, so it's, for the sake of the Treasury, I would take the advice of the Treasury to put it in the budget wherever it is appropriately put.
I don't understand the problem here. Are you saying we can't do this?
No, you can do it. It's just if you,
Thank you.
right now, if you take it out of the existing pot, there'll be no change to the levy, but if you add to it, there'll be, it'll be a
Levy?
minor,
We haven't arrived at a levy yet.
no. but you'll be adding to the budget. If you're adding the 5,000, it'll be adding
Correct.
to the budget.
Yes, unless we take something out of the budget.
Okay.
I mean, council can decide and decides in the end how it raises its funds.
Okay. Yeah, I guess what I was speaking to, there is a pot of 5,196 left there that you use throughout the year. Do you want to, I would probably suggest leaving that there and adding this as on top of,
I see.
so that you still have some to allocate through the year. But I just wanted clarification as to what we were doing.
Which you're entitled to for sure.
And the motion from the last meeting was to carry that over, so unless we change that direction, this would be an addition.
Councillor Coleman.
Well, the original request was for $10,000 last week. And it was put a motion.
For 2018.
Yes, for 2018.
Correct.
The motion was put on the floor and it was turned down. And
Correct.
We put a new motion on $5,000 and I think I made the motion. So I'm sticking with my $5,000. I'm not supporting the total of $10,000.
Any other speakers? Everyone clear on the motion? All in favor? Opposed?
Carried.
Looks to me
Motion's
like
carried.
it's carried. Do you agree?
Yes.
Thank you. That leaves 6, 7. 2018 budget overview update by Robin Hewitt. Are you ready? Please come forward.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, welcome to the day of deliberations. So you can see on our process chart that we're almost at the end, December 13th, and we'll begin our deliberations in just a short time. But after our last couple meetings, there were some items that you asked for follow-up on or clarification on, so I'll try to address those items as before we begin the deliberations. So fees for trees. So a question was brought up about why aren't there fees for cutting a tree without a permit? And was this discussed at a previous tree committee? So the answers are, offenders are currently charged under the Provincial Offences Act if they're caught cutting a tree without a permit.
Right.
They don't have to apply right now for another permit that costs more money, but they can be charged. And we do actually have some of those ongoing right now. And this was discussed at one of the tree committees. However, it was not approved to increase those fines. So just a little bit of history on that. Back in July of 2016, the tree committee referred this issue of cutting without a permit to CDC. In April, a report went to CDC regarding the tree cutting issues. And then it was passed at CDC, but it went to council later that month in April. There was a delegation that came and spoke, and then the report was referred back to CDC. So where it sits right now is staff are currently consulting with various groups in preparation for a new report to CDC that will bring back a different proposal. Okay?
Is it not the case that if you cut trees that should go through the committee and get approval, and you haven't done that, then that goes before you're charged with that, and that's a fine by a judge.
Correct.
So that's the way that's covered.
Yeah.
And if the committee doesn't proceed with that, then there's the problem, or
Right.
there's why it isn't charged. Councillor Gallagher.
Yes, and if we lay charges, that's a very expensive process. If a developer didn't apply and knew he was supposed to, that was the whole purpose of this, that
Should have been fine.
he would pay a higher fee when he did apply as a penalty. And that would get us away from charges and expensive court costs. Because
The cutting of trees is under the Trees Act.
the tree
It's
bylaw.
now part of the Municipal Act, I believe. as you have stated.
Mhm.
And the rules are there. That's what the committee operates under. Councillor Coleman,
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Mayor. I just want to correct Councillor Gower. This is not about just the developers. We've had more problems with individuals than we've had with
Owners of
developers.
property.
So please quit labeling developers. You did that last week, too.
Well, I haven't heard of any private individuals. I
yes.
guess you
Oh,
have,
yes.
but I haven't.
Yes. Thank you for the information. Now, where are we?
Okay.
So this item is off our list.
It's off the list. There will be a report coming to CDC regarding this in the new year at some
Thank you.
point.
We'll look forward to that.
Okay, arenas. There was a little bit of confusion about what the revenues and expenses were for each arena and how much is subsidized by the county. So you can see there's a comparison here for each arena from 2017 to 2018, and you can see the percentages that are subsidized by the levy.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Chambers.
Just for clarification, that is solely the arenas, or is it the community centers?
All as well.
For example, there's baseball fields in some of the, is that all inclusive? Or is
No,
that-
this is just the arenas. At our meeting last week, we did provide a slide that had all of the facilities.
Councillor Powell.
On the Syllabs one, 161,000 income, 248 expenses. Now, in the expenses, are you charging over a period of 5 years, for example, for the turf that was put in there a few years ago?
I think I'll have to defer to Michael on this. That was probably a capital expense, but I'll let him speak to it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, or Your Worship, these are operating expenses. They don't include any long-term portion of capital, so.
So they spent almost $250,000 in 1 year to keep the doors open?
The cost to run that facility for 2018 is projected to be $285,000. So we have 2 full-time employees, a part-time complement, and there's operating costs, snow plowing and grass cutting for the facility, et cetera, cleaning. So that's what it costs to maintain that facility.
So it's about half the cost of an arena where you're having to look after ice.
Agreed, Mr. Chair, yep.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, next is the library funding request. So they submitted a decision package for 1.6 additional FTEs, and I think there were some questions around how those FTEs were broken up. So you can see there was one position of 30 hours for a total of 12 months cost, including benefits of $44,747, and one position of 27 hours for 12 months, totaling $40,254. So the chief librarian is here. If you have any additional questions about this, she can answer those.
Councillor Miller?
Just, how long, when was the last time the library hired anybody?
I'm going to let Gay speak to that.
Welcome. Please proceed when you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. That would be approximately 8 years ago.
Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Gay. Could these be contract positions possibly?
Contract, to me, has a sense that it's to fulfill a need for a specific time period or a project, and then once that's done, they're over with or they leave, whereas these aren't in that type of a
I think we
environment.
have contract positions in recreation that most of them turn into full-time eventually, but I've never heard them for special projects, so I don't know. It's my interpretation of contract.
I don't know how
Okay.
that works
Thank
with
you.
them.
Anyone else?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can give you an example. There's, in your decision packages, there's a position in there for a health and safety specialist that is a one-year contract. Yes. So that is an example of... 1 year, yeah. Yes, that's a person that's to be hired to fulfill a specific Exactly. amount of work.
Any other questions? If not, you see the total budget request, and that is before us, correct?
Yes, but we have one.
How's
Does it
that
come
work?
up later?
Pardon? No.
I'm sorry, just trying to clarify something for council. Is this coming up later in the unmet needs? You're just clarifying something at this point,
At this
right?
point, this is just for clarification about, after some questions that were
Okay.
raised.
So
We're
this-
not asking for a decision
No,
right now.
no,
That'll come later.
that's correct.
Okay, so my question is, thank you, Mr. Mayor. 57 hours would be per week for these two part-time positions, and they'd get benefits. The 7 library assistants that we have right now, how many hours per week do they work? Because these two people are to relieve those people when they're sick or on vacation, correct?
Correct. So the ones that exist right now are on a varying schedule. Some work, actually quite a few work 30 hours a week, some work 28 hours a week, and I think we have one at 17 hours a week.
And when they schedule vacations, do you allow two to be off at the same time, or it doesn't matter, or you like them to stagger their holidays?
We try to stagger as much as we can, but when you are handling more holidays than there are weeks in a year, you obviously are going to get heavy overlap.
Thank you.
Collision. So the statement is, oh, did you have a question, Councilor Coleman?
Yeah.
Yes.
My question would be to the librarian is that are these, you plan on having these employees in position at the beginning of this coming calendar year, or are these going to be staged in over the part of the year? So will this be a total impact on our budget of this increase? Will it be only half this year coming up, or is that going to be the total budget coming up in 2018?
It does, it does take you a good 2 to 3 months to get a body in place. But my understanding has been from direction of council, when submitting a budget figure for an employee, you always wanted to see the 12-month impact. You didn't want something kind of half done and then all of a sudden, wham, the next year you got the whole impact of the dollar figure. So I went with the 12 months, but yes, it's going to take us 2 to 3 months to get, or long, depending, you're correct, depends on what your response is and how your process moves.
Councilor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Gay. I know you had talked before that it's very difficult transferring librarians from one library to another library and putting them around. Now, you stated here that these two are going to be filling in for those that are off and stuff like that. So in essence, these two are going to be bouncing around from library to library, correct?
Correct.
And when they're interviewed for the position, that will be noted at that point in time, so there's no...
That's correct.
Okay.
That, in fact, that will be an emphasis, that these positions are very fluent, let's say. They must move between the 5 branches,
Thank
and
you.
that's how it's set up. There's no budget concern over an office space or office equipment. They'll have a handheld device like an iPad or a laptop, but basically, they're on the road.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, go ahead.
And you do, understand this is the crux of Bill 148. as Cindy Stevenson had done in her report that came to CDC. I think it, again, was clearly outlined there, the impact of what's happening over this movement from the 4% to 6%, which is a movement from 2 weeks holidays to 3 weeks holidays. And given that the overwhelming majority of the staff in the library are part-time and have worked more than 5 years, we'll be moving forward.
Councillor Pierce.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I just thought of something when I was looking at the screen there. So the range is, say, $23 to $27, give or take there. That totals of the 44,744 and 42,54, is that at the
Entry level, 22.
22? Thank you.
Councillor Powell?
When these employees are on the road, are they entitled to travel expenses?
No, way the policy states at the library is that when you go to your initial place of employment, if I came in today and started in Burford, you don't pay for my drive from home to Burford. And then if I left from Burford and went back home, that's it, that's done. But if in the case that I came into Paris, and from Paris I had to go to St. George within the same day, then that's when the ticker starts, was when I have to move from Paris to St. George. Now, if I go from St. George and go home, that's a done deal. There's no cost there. But if for some reason from St. George I have to bounce over to the Glen, or I got to go down to Burford, until I shift and move until I head home. So if somebody is on call on this call system and they're replacing somebody in Burford or St. George, where they go into Burford and they leave from Burford, no, there's no additional mileage costs. But if we're bouncing them that day between multiple branches, then after their initial branch out, yes, there would be a mileage.
Any other speakers? If not, thank you. Thank you. Coming forward, librarian.
So this next slide is really to put into context the labor market. As you'll see in the decision packages, there's a number of FTEs requests in there, and really looking at this slide, it demonstrates that across the province, actually across the whole country, the demand for employees is more than ever. And as a matter of fact, the unemployment rate in the Brantford area dropped to 4.8% in the month of November, which is down from 5.3% in October and 5.5% in September. So you can see in this area, there's a high demand for jobs. Our rate is lower than the rest of the province, just about. So here at the county, we have grown, and we also are in the same position that the rest of the province is in requiring additional resources.
I can tell you also, Your Worship, that we are having this, we find this with our building inspectors, with all different, when we go out to market with various things. We were just talking about our management committee meeting today, how difficult it is to recruit for a number of the positions. And I happen to have a meeting with Tiger Cat on another matter and Walter Steel this week on another matter, and both of them said, just on the side, they're having a difficult time finding skilled labor. It's a real challenge, and I know BGI is having the same problems, and I'm sure if we canvass some of our other employers. So it's an issue. I think we all heard about it 20 years ago, how we were going to age and there were going to be enough kids and skilled labor coming in. And I never thought it would happen, but it's starting to manifest itself.
Thank you.
Okay. So this here is our starting point before deliberations. We went through this at one of the previous meetings, but bottom line is there's an increase to the levy of $1.396 million, which equates to 2.9%. But how that translates into a taxpayer in an average home valued at $300,000, this slide says 0.56% and 1401. It's actually, with the addition of the two items you just approved, would now be at 0.64% as our starting point. The dollars are the same, actually.
And your worship, I know this is something that confuses
I'm sorry,
members.
$16.15, sorry.
Confuses people from time to time. If you could flip back a couple slides, Robin. One more. A lot of people go down and look, and rightfully so, at that 2.9, and they say, well, our tax rate, it's going up 2.9%. But to the next slide.
That's the levy.
It really works this way because the assessment.
Yes.
We're getting more assessment in that. So even though we're expending more, 2.9% more in the levy, I'm complicating a little bit, it's the 0.56 that you need to focus on, which is now 0.6 something or other.
0.64. Right, so we have a big influx in the industrial
That's right.
segment, so a lot of the tax burden is shifted that way, so that's why it's less for an average household.
Questions?
Okay, I just wanted to go over this slide. You've seen this before, but I just want to make sure that you understand how each each increase impacts the average taxpayer. So you can see in the first one, farm tax ratio at 0.25. That's what it is currently. It's at 0.25. And the industrial ratio is at 0.255 or 2.55. So if we were to increase decrease the industrial ratio to 2.5, that would have a $5.15 impact on the taxpayer. If we were to reduce the farm ratio to 0.24 and not decrease the industrial ratio, it would be a 5.32 increase to the taxpayer. Or if we did both, it would be a $10.49 increase to the taxpayer. And over here, if we decrease the farm ratio to 0.23, but not change the industrial ratio, it'd be 1065, or if we did both, it would be 1585 to the taxpayer, average home.
Councillor Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Robin. So that increase, take the 1585, is that on top of the 1615? That's correct. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Powell?
Through you to Robin. Robin, reducing the industrial ratio, I'm just thinking of an outfit like Adidas. They came this area because they got a better deal on the cost of the land, I guess the infrastructure, the whole 9 yards. In other words, that's why these big corporations move to somewhere. Because the advantages they get, I guess, are maybe tremendous is not the right word to use. So to turn around and give them a break when we're already giving them, I think, a fairly good financial deal, it doesn't seem fair to those who've already lived in the county for X numbers of years.
I believe the answer would have to be tied in with whether or not municipalities charge development fees. As we know, our taxes are cheaper than some adjoining municipalities, but we charge development fees, and some of them do not. So it varies from that point as well.
That's correct, and we want to remain competitive with our neighbors. So this would bring us more in line with our neighboring municipalities. When different businesses are looking for places to locate, if our industrial ratio is higher than our neighbors, they might be tempted to go there instead of here.
Just to follow up, if
Yes.
some community, the tax rates may be the same as ours, but they have a deal where maybe they're getting water or some other service for 5 years as an incentive to come into this particular municipality. Does that not happen?
I can't really speak to that. I'm not aware of any of those kinds of arrangements here or elsewhere, but I'm just...
I believe our CAO can talk to that because water must pay for itself. Isn't that provincial rule?
Yeah, there's a piece of provincial legislation called the Sustainable Sewer and Water Act, and it says
Yeah.
basically you have to account for that separately, and the ratepayer has to pay for all the operating and ongoing capital costs associated with it. So if our rates are different than another municipality's rates, it depends on the geography a lot of the time. For example, Brant has, what do we have, quite a few numbers of water systems that we operate, and whereas you take the city of Brantford, for 100,000 people, they have one source. Granted, they're taking it out of the river and they got to treat it a little more, but it would be a more affordable system as opposed to a lot of wells all over the place and all the treatment and so on. So you can't compare, you're not comparing apples to apples when you do that. You better to compare Brant on the water side to a place like the region of Waterloo or some of those that take their water from the ground too. And
Councilor Gatward, sorry. I wasn't sleeping.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if you can tell me, Robin, what brought this on? Why are you suggesting that we reduce the ratio? Or are these just examples for our information?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe there was a delegation that came and spoke at one point about the farm tax ratios, and at that time it was referred to budget. So that's why that piece is in here.
Okay.
The industrial ratio change, it was put forward by our manager of tax, and she did that looking at us trying to be competitive and remain so.
And can you explain to me, we did have a discussion last year about possibly changing the farm ratio, and we didn't. And I think some of it was because we found out that the tax rate on a farm house and 1 acre is not the same as a residential home. Can you explain that to us?
From my understanding, and this was in, I think, my first presentation, that the 1 acre that the farm sits on, or that the house sits on, is taxed at the residential rate, and then the outbuildings are taxed at another rate, and then the land that's actually farmed is taxed at another rate again.
25%, yeah. For the, excuse me, for the land, 25%. The house, is it at 50%, I recall? Christine Staley giving us a report that said that.
I would have to double check. I thought it was at 100%, but I'm not. It is at 100? From the treasurer, she says that the residential piece is at 100%.
Is it 100%? Not 50%?
Correct.
For the house and 1 acre?
Right.
And the outbuildings, can you tell me what they are?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I can.
Pardon, what is it you're asking? I'm not hearing it. You're talking to someone else other than...
The outbuildings, Mr. Mayor, what rate are they taxed at?
Would you like to come forward? Are there others?
I can look in
Do you have
my
answers?
binder at the previous presentation, because I know it's in there. If you want to just...
That'd be great. Because we don't know all the nuances
Well,
within
you're
our...
really into impact information. You need to talk to the impact people on this. They're the ones that set the rules and have all the figures on what they do and how they do it, rather than our staff. Maybe they have some information, but they're not the ones that impose the rules.
It's just, Mr. Mayor, the reason I'm asking these questions...
The assessment function
Yeah.
is done by impact.
And the reason I'm asking these...
I don't really think our staff should be answering those questions unless they... I really don't.
And the reason I'm asking these questions, Mr. Mayor, is simply because, as you know, we're a large rural county, and we have a lot of rural farmland. So this impact on our residential is quite a bit, and that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Well, farms vary. A lot of farms now do not have buildings.
Exactly.
Residences, and some don't have any buildings. It varies so considerably.
And so
Councillor
that's,
Coleman.
I think she has the answer now.
Councillor Coleman has.
I'll let the staff.
Thank you. please.
I don't have the actual percentages. I can see the farm buildings are valued based on replacement cost. So is the residence, farmland is based on similar sales. And residence land is valued as farmland, depending on whether it's occupied by the farmer or a non-farmer. But I don't have the actual percentages.
Okay,
Okay?
we can get that from MPAC,
But
thank you.
MPAC
Yeah.
does.
Yes.
MPAC would be able to answer any of these questions, I think. Should be able to. But it's true, in any farm that has a residence, 1 acre of land is assessed separately
That's
with
correct.
the house. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. And you're wanting to know at what percentage it's?
I will give an example, Mr. Mayor. Recently, I saw a farm for sale, and the farmhouse and 1 acre was, the taxes were very low. And I thought, gee,
On the land or the house?
on the house and the 1 acre. And the assessed value, I thought, wow, I wish my house, I could have the taxes for that, because I have just shy of 1 acre, and I paid far more taxes than this farm on 1 acre did. That was in the newspaper. So that's
Did
why
it
I'm
have-
asking.
Did it have water? Did it have sewer? Did it have?
No, it didn't, and I don't either.
Your worship?
Part of the calculation of the taxes on that, the residence, is whether or not it's the farmer that lives there or someone else. That plays into how the taxes are calculated on that piece of the farm.
Thank you.
And it did at one time depend on the type of road you lived on as well. Gravel road, houses on gravel roads aren't assessed as high as houses on beautifully smooth paved roads. I mean, but MPAC is,
Would know that now, if they, how they're doing that, yeah.
well,
We've got some houses on gravel roads that.
you shouldn't be taxed as much because you have to wash your car more often.
So the house at 1 acre is at the
Sure.
residential rate.
Sure.
The farmland is at the .25. Farm buildings are also at .25.
Farm buildings are at .25. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the information.
Your worship,
Any action or?
well, I just wanted to point out where we are. So
Yes, I'd like to.
what Robin has just gone through are a series of questions you asked, and she's just trying to provide clarification.
Correct.
You will be able to debate and make a decision with respect to farm rates and everything else now as we move into our unmet needs. And you can see down there.
You say now.
We're moved now, if you agree, into this slide, which is starting to make decisions on some of these issues.
That's correct.
Well, we hadn't.
And we as staff have not prioritized them, that's obviously up to you, but to help you, we tried to put them into categories
Thank you.
called critical needs, which you could say are likely the higher priority in our minds, best management, and enhanced services.
Thank you. Good.
And there they are.
Yes. So we're over the page now. We've completed this discussion and question period on assessments, correct? So
That's
we're
correct.
over
So
the
now
page.
we're on to the actual
Thank you.
decision packages.
Good, thank you.
So do you want me to stay up here to go through each one, or how do we do this? So with the first one,
Counselor Chambers,
sorry?
please.
Just, Mr. Mayor, if I might, before we start going through them one by one, I'm just wondering if the CAO or the
Yes.
staff can elaborate a little bit on the categories, critical needs, best management, enhanced services. Obviously, that's a priority that staff is. I'm just wondering if you could elaborate on what a critical need is compared to an enhanced service, just
Thank you.
as a starting point.
Well, I'll take a stab, but I'm going to need help. These were terms that we put on these things, but we didn't actually, I don't have a definition. Definition might vary in people's minds a little bit. I'm looking over at Michael, he probably came up with some of these names, I think he did. But the critical needs would be, in our view, your highest priority. They're ones that we feel they just need to get done. But best management, enhanced services, I think that there's maybe, Michael, you can explain the split. They're not necessarily priority 2 and 3. It's just two different kind of categories of, in similar families, we felt, of things.
Well, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I do have the definitions.
Do you have them down?
I
Okay,
do.
we do have a definition written down.
I do.
Wow, great.
So if you'd like me to...
I'll shut up then.
No, I didn't mean to say that.
I'm trying to help you out.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So critical needs are immediate additions required to maintain the current level of service. So we're not asking for an additional level of service, this is just to maintain what we have without...
Okay, excellent.
Councillor Balmer?
If I could ask your worship, if we approved everything as it is right now, what would the total tax increase be right now?
You know, it would be, I had that written down.
3 1/3?
Depends what you do with the ratios.
Yeah, it will depend what you do with the ratios. Because if you look at the bottom, it's a 3.32% addition to that 0.64 if you include the ratio changes in the ratios. If you don't, then it's a 2.75% increase to the 0.64. The 0.64 is where we start. The farm ratio and the industrial ratio, so if we change those based on that slide that I showed you, the impact of increasing or decreasing one or the other or both, that will impact the levy. Or the increase, sorry. That's
So
extra.
what we're seeing up here right now, courtesy of Heather, is if this includes everything but changing the ratios. I just thought I'd like to know that first so that I can have
So
an
is
idea
everything
going in.
included in there? So 3.33% without the ratios.
Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The ratios, are they allowed to be taken off next year if we decide, or are they there permanently?
They would be there until council decided to change them again.
Here at one time, they could not come off once they got residential, so
I believe it's more difficult to do, but it would be at the will of council.
Councillor Pierce, please.
A point of order, Mr. I'm not sure my question got answered before we got sidetracked into these questions. I'm just wondering if we can go back, get the answer to my question before we proceed.
And
Correct. So the definitions. So I just gave the definition of the critical needs, so that it's immediate addition required to maintain the current level of service. Best management are additions that will alleviate pressures and provide efficiencies. And enhanced services are additions that will provide a higher level of service that is currently provided. Okay.
And I thank you for the answer to the question. And just to follow up, how do these definitions and categories relate to the key strategic priorities that we have established as a municipality moving forward? Is there a close relationship, or is there no relationship to the strategic direction that we have decided to go on?
So you're referring to the strategic plan that there's like a list of, I think, 4 different items, you know, the county will be fiscally responsible and those kinds of things. So we didn't categorize those in terms of these decision packages. We could do that. They would all tie in some way to the strategic plan, but we didn't draw the lines for this purpose.
Yeah.
It's not directly in response to.
No, if I could, Your Worship, to add to what Robin said, we've got 4 broad categories. I think you all have it in front of you. And all of these relate to that. It's helping to manage our operation in a financially, fiscally responsible way. It's dealing with the capital assets and ensuring our community is healthy and progressive. And that's where some of these, particularly the enhanced services, fall into that category. So I think it's quite consistent with the strategic plan.
Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could, let's start off with line number, can we go back up to line number 1, please? This little piece of paper here that we received this evening, how does that affect line number 1?
Yes. That was my
I
question.
can respond to that, Your Worship.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you remember at CDC, I mentioned that I thought maybe the city and the county were going on 2 different paths.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
but that particular night, they made a decision, and they're on a similar schedule to us. They've got a budget meeting tonight,
Yep.
and then it gets ratified at council next Tuesday night, the same as us. But at any rate, they passed this resolution recommending that the new ambulance be moved up from 2019 into the 2018 budget. But in exchange, they are recommending that the supervisors going off the road, which was in the plan for 2018, be moved forward to 2019. So they basically switched the ambulance and the supervisors around. And but that still potentially puts us on different paths, because it was my sense, and you'll make a decision shortly, whether you leave both of them in, both the ambulance and the supervisors for 2018. So I had a conversation with their CAO today. I was just relaying that to the mayor before the meeting, and said, in the event that we do approve both tonight, that I'll be, in fact, he texted me here just a while ago, and I said, probably no before 8 o'clock. So then I think it'd be good if our mayor and I sat down with their mayor and talked about how maybe that could get smoothed through their budget process. It's for them to decide, but it puts, if they follow through with this in their budget, we're in different places.
Correct.
Okay, so a follow-up if I could on that, and I appreciate that explanation, but that doesn't really answer. So at the end of the day, we say yes, that puts them in a position that they have no choice but to say yes, correct?
Yes, but maybe we sit down and we say, okay, maybe there's compromise. In this world, everybody can't have everything they want all the time. So maybe there's a compromise. But I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe a compromise is you bring the supervisors off the road on halfway through the year, or something like that enables the city's budget. Maybe they maybe have budget challenges that we don't know about. Obviously, they do.
I'm sure.
And we have our own challenges. And so that may be a compromise they can think about and say, yeah, we could live with that.
Okay.
So that's the kind of discussion I'd like to have offline, so that we don't end up next Tuesday in 2 different places.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, thank you for that.
Councillor Bauman, did you have your hand up a minute ago?
I'll wait for Councillor Wheat.
Councillor Wheat?
I think this thing here that we got tonight is a real compromise, because a week ago, the city wasn't gonna put an ambulance on the road. As you recall, their one member here walked out of community services.
Correct.
Because we were, and they weren't. This is a compromise. But I think this is a good move.
They were going to do the other though, Councilor.
They've moved more to our direction than away from us. They've moved they've moved more towards us than away from us.
Yes.
And I think this is a good move. And
it's helpful.
If you put the vehicle on the road, it adds 0.29. If you don't put the supervisors on, it takes out 0.31, which is a balance.
Councillor Bauman?
Very good. Yeah.
He was there first.
And based on that, I would be in support of, since that is a compromise position already, to take out number 1, basically trading off our consultant's report recommendation from next year for the consultant's report recommendation for this year and trading them around. So that this year, we add the ambulance on the road, and then next year, we're on track, depending on what happens at community services with ambulance reporting, what might be the budget request for next year, but that we put the ambulance on the road today, ASAP, and move the supervisor request to the 2019 budget request, trading those aspects of the consultant's report around, and giving the ambulance time to get their ducks in a row to have a different request for us next year. So I like that idea. I think the city's come a long way, because I agree with Councillor Wheat that last week that absolutely was not going to happen, and so I think this could be a good thing, rather than having to do those soft conversations depending on what Paul says now. Thank you.
Can I just respond to a technical point? I just want to remind council that when the consultant's report was done, there was a reason the supervisors were coming off the road in 2018. There's a big problem there right now with workload and the supervisors being out driving ambulances and not being able to supervise. Right. There's health and safety concerns as a result of it. There's supervisors, and I'm hearing more and more about this from our management and from our worker side, that these supervisors are, sometimes they do a shift, then they come home, and now they're the on-call one, but they've done a shift, so they're getting the calls all night long. Then they go back in for a shift. It's not working very effectively, and it's causing risk in different areas. So there's a good reason for that being there. It's almost as important, or as important, depending on how you look at it, as an ambulance going on. It's all part of a system that's stressed right at the moment and needs this support.
Councillor Simons.
What was I going to ask? Is this an essential need, or is this a...
Well, we staff feel that it's a critical need.
Is it?
Yes.
A critical need?
It's both these items are things that need to be put in to maintain the current service level.
All right. Good point. Councillor Gatwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Mr. CAO, for that previous explanation, because my question was exactly about the supervisors. And last year we added an ambulance and no supervisors, and now this year we want to add another ambulance. What is the ratio of paramedics and ambulances per supervisor, and what do we currently have?
I could call on our Director of Ambulance Services to answer that, Your Worship. But what I want to clarify for you, as Charles is coming up, is that in most other jurisdictions, and Charles will confirm this, it's my understanding that supervisors are off the road. We're the rarity around the province, where the supervisor not only supervises and looks after all those duties, ordering materials, dealing with health and safety, scheduling, blah, 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 on a 7/24 basis, but also gets called upon to drive an ambulance to a scene, deal with a patient, be part of an offload delay at a hospital. And Charles, you confirm this, is what I understand from listening to, that other jurisdictions around the province, supervisors aren't doing both jobs.
They're supervisors.
They're a supervisor. And
that's it. Maybe their unions are more strict or something.
Well, I'm not so sure it has to do anything to do with the union, because these aren't bargaining unit positions.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait for Charles to...
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 4 shift supervisors currently and approximately 90 paramedics, full and part-time. So the ratio is about 1 to 22, 23.
And is that an average for the province, or how does that compare to best practices or other ambulance services?
The consultant, in his report, I believe it was 1 supervisor to 11 workers, was the normal ratio. And as the CAO has mentioned, we are the rarity. Most municipalities, the supervisors are not part of the working crew on an ambulance.
And could you answer then, 1 to 11 is the recommended ratio, and we're 1 to 20?
1 to 22, approximately.
Currently, and we have 4 supervisors and 90 paramedics, and that's why you're recommending another supervisor.
Yes, Your Worship. The additional supervisor would be used to cover when other supervisors are off on vacation or illness, almost like a float supervisor, so that we would achieve our goal of trying to have a supervisor available 24/7 to meet the needs of the service and the community and the paramedics.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt, but all that information is in the package that was given to us. Exactly what Charles just said, it's in the package.
Have you looked at it, Councillor Galway?
Yes, but
Oh, you have, so
I
you-
find talking to Charles to get this is much easier to
Much easier.
digest, hearing it from the, I don't want to say horse's mouth, but hearing it from Charles's mouth makes it much easier. So thank you very much, Charles, for that.
Oh, thank you. Councillor Ballmer.
Well, with that information, Your Worship, and given the caveat that you and the CAO will be conversing with the mayor of Brantford and the CAO there, I would be prepared to move items 1 through 29 for approval, putting them on the floor, seeking a seconder, and then we can pull items that people don't want to do.
Second.
Councillor Wheat had already raised his hand. Were you seconding it as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Get it all on the floor.
You seconded. Is that correct? Okay, you have the motion. Would you read it to us?
The motion is that decision package items 1 through 29 be implemented for the 2018 budget.
Is that correct? Councillor Simons.
Mr. Mayor, could you tell me where in this package, in this critical, best, and enhanced, the farm tax ratio is located, or is it not?
It's
Number
under
10?
best management,
Okay, farm tax ratio, I see.
I think
okay.
9 and 10,
So,
or 10, well, the farm is 10.
so it's 1065, then am I correct, for an increase to a home?
I think, just to clarify what's happening here, there's a motion on the floor to add all of these excluding the ratios, I thought you said.
No, we didn't.
Sorry. And then we would deal with the ratios.
Someone can pull those?
I'd like
We can
to-
discuss those.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I'd like to pull that out if I may. So it would be pulling number 9 and number 10.
Yep.
Please.
What are you asking, Councillor?
I asked to have number 9 and number 10 pulled from the motion for further discussion.
And we haven't seen a change.
Councillor Powell, please.
I would like to pull number 2.
I want to ask a question. Have we seconded this yet?
Councillor Miller had his hand up first, sorry.
I'd rather go through each one individually.
Pardon?
I'd rather go through each one individually, but can you pull 7 for me, please? 1 and 29.
Councillor Chambers.
I would like all of the enhanced services being pulled.
Councillor Wheat.
Although I seconded Councillor Ballmer's motion to put them all on the floor, what I can see happening here is there's going to be a whole bunch pulled, so let us know we go through them.
start,
Yeah.
let's go through number one, this will be a whole bunch of code. Sure. Save a whole lot of conversation. Just go right down the list as Council knows.
Yeah,
I think
that's a good
it's good.
idea.
Yes, I agree. Okay.
You're withdrawing the motion?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. So that means we go to where?
Number one.
Yes.
I think that
So-
we weren't doing that either.
In order to deal with this without a motion on every one, we will
You voted
ask
in, we don't need to
for
talk.
anyone who wishes to speak to any item. And if there's, if they wish to make a motion
I think we should vote.
to exclude it or change it,
I think we decided we were going to consider each one separately.
yes, I know that. That's what I'm talking
Make a
about.
motion on each one? Is that where we're at, I think? I think that's what. we're looking-
Yeah.
So with that in mind,
Pardon?
I will move number one.
Thank you.
See, if it gets approval, with the understanding that our executives will be discussing with the city of Brantford to seek a compromise to come to council.
Moved by Councillor Bowman.
Because I see it as a critical need that we need to fill.
Right. Anyone wish to speak? Councillor Miller?
Just, we got some emails and things, as such from the ambulance drivers talking about the stress and burnout and whatnot. And, both are needed. Of the two, I support the additional ambulance. And I would ask that the supervisors, if they could give us another year and this come back next year and support that. So I'm going to actually vote against that, and I will support an additional ambulance.
We're just talking about number one right now.
Correct,
Let's
one.
stay on number one.
That's right. That's what we're dealing with. Are you speaking to
That's what
one?
he's speaking
Yeah,
to.
I'm good. No, yes, I am. I'm speaking to one.
And what are you saying?
And to me, the ambulance it's a big hit for 1 year. And I'm going to support two, but not one.
Councillor James.
Mr. Mayor, I support the recommendation. I support the additional effort to discuss with the city to reach perhaps better agreement on that issue. I also believe that one of the large concerns of the city is the governance of the ambulance, and I believe that we need to look at that as well through the course of the next upcoming year, because that we have to recognize, I think, that the city is paying 70% of this, and perhaps that is an issue that we need to discuss as well. So I support the recommendation entirely. I believe that a compromise can be achieved, and going back to what Councillor Coleman said with regard to the library, this may not be a complete hit for the entire year, and that may reflect, and that may be part of the compromise.
The way out. The way out.
In the implementation of this recommendation.
And what we need to remember too, if we get just on the funding formula, if we get through this year, which we as municipalities pay for the whole shot, come 2019, the province is going to pay for half, and then we're cut back to paying for it. Okay.
Well, if they get in. If they don't get
So,
elected, it's different.
we have a motion on number one
get
to
elected.
approve. Anyone wish to speak? None? All in favor? Oh, did you want to speak,
No,
Councillor?
I'm voting.
That's
All in
the-
favor? Opposed? Carried. Number two,
So moved. Second, yeah.
moved and seconded. You got them. Anyone wish to speak? No speak? Councillor?
This is on number two.
Yes, sir.
At the provincial level, they're putting hundreds of millions of dollars
Yes, sir.
into try to solve this problem of emergency waiting time, et cetera. The other day, they took 100 patients out of South Lake Hospital, and they moved them into about 6 other facilities. Now,
Correct.
whether they had to improve them, et cetera. And the government's sort of indicating they finally see the problem, and they're going to put money in to solve it. Now, in our local situation, our supervisor at doing BGH, has made some direct and very specific recommendations. Number one, they're going to move the fracture clinic to another part of the hospital to free up room for the emergency department, because they're almost side by side.
Yeah.
And secondly, we're putting 32 beds in the Willet. Now, they're saying it's for flu, but there may be...
That's for chronic care.
Okay, so there may be, and we don't know yet, a possibility that that might be extended and become perhaps another 6 months or a year. And also, we've been given money for the ambulance to go to certain apartment buildings and look after patients to do certain medical procedures so they don't have to go to BGH. So I'm thinking, hoping, this will reduce the service calls and the backup. Now, I don't know if it's possible. I think we've done it before. I'd like to see the results of these items I've mentioned. Now, it might take 3 months, it might take 6.
A lot longer than that.
But it'd be interesting to know what this is going to do trend-wise with the problem we've been looking at for a few years. So if there's any way to implement something after whatever that would be called, looking at what's happened with, and there's a number of things on the playing field, so to speak, and we hope the...
Yes, Councillor Powell, the answer to that is that the committee will be seeing this. We get ambulance figures every month, every meeting, so they will be dealing with any changes that happen. They will see it and they will be able to respond. I have a motion to approve number 2. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 3.
So moved.
Councillor Pierce, second by Councillor Wheat. Discussion. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we had our previous fire chief here, we received a letter from Emergency Management Ontario's congratulating us on being compliant with our emergency operations and plans. And we went for some time, as everyone knows, without a fire chief. And now we have a new fire chief, thankfully. And so I'm wondering why the plan that we have currently cannot be merged and meshed with this plan that the city already has through meetings to make a joint seamless emergency management plan. Why do we have to hire somebody for $91,000 to do a plan?
Councillor Gatward, you are speaking against a motion that's been approved by this council. I cannot deal with that as such at this time.
What do you mean?
Well,
It's been dealt with.
Well, and I'm sorry, I don't support that.
Right.
I feel that we've already done this work and it needs to be,
But when council, it's a fact that in a council, when a decision is made by the council, all members are expected, I think it's stronger than that, to support that recommendation, even though personally they're vehemently opposed to it. I'm sorry, I think we've all had that experience. Councillor Bauman, please.
If I may speak to that, Your Worship, simply, both municipalities need this position because of legislation, and by sharing it like this, we halve the cost. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman?
No, I'm
going to
voting.
vote. All in favor? Opposed? Opposed? We've only got 2 carried. Number 4.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second. Discussion? None? All in favor?
wait, number
All
4?
in favor?
No.
Opposed?
It's a library.
Carried.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted to comment on number 4.
Reverse, back up. Before you. 4 is before you.
I appreciate the librarian making do for the last 8 years with the staff she has, but I would like to see only one circulation assistant added, and could it be a contract position for 30 hours a week? So that is my suggestion, and that would...
Unfortunately, there's a motion. Are you going to amend the motion? There is a motion, I believe, approving it.
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion.
What is your amendment?
That number 4 be amended to one part-time contract, 30-hour-a-week circulation assistant.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I heard Gay up there say it's been 8 years since they've hired anybody, additional staff in the library. And I believe it was you that asked the question, Councillor Gatward. Correct me if I'm wrong on that as well.
Yes, you are. It was Councillor Miller.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I appreciate that. I don't think it's bad to add 2 employees in 8 years if we look at everything else in the county that we support.
Growth.
Exactly, there's growth in there, and we're adding and growing as a community, as a county. I'm all in favor of this.
Thank you. Councillor Baumann.
I have to speak against the idea of this being a contract position. If this was just a one-year role, and then it would be done, but to hire contract employees that are renewed on an annual basis when you're seeking to fill a position that needs to be filled on a permanent basis, I know there's been a lot of bad media about that, but I also don't agree with filling positions you need with contract employees. I think if you have a job that needs to be filled, you should fill it. So I can't support an amendment to make this a contract position. And again, as has been stated, we need the 2 part-times. Let's get this done.
Councillor Chambers, please. You had your hand.
I support
Okay.
the motion as presented.
Councillor Simons.
I'd just like to make a comment that the accessibility clerk has been in contract for the whole time, except maybe this year. I think she was hired full-time this year. So she's been a contract for several years.
Motion to approve. All in favor?
The amended motion, or?
No. She didn't have a seconder for that amendment.
Oh, there wasn't
Well,
asked
we
for a
didn't ask
seconder.
for one.
No.
We have to
We
ask
got
for one.
we got sidetracked.
Yeah,
Did we have a second? Did you have a seconder?
I'll second it.
You're going to second it now?
Yep.
Okay, amendment. Is everyone clear on the amendment?
And you know what? I'll make a friendly amendment to my suggestion. Instead of it being a contract position, that it be a county position, not a
Changing
contract
the
position.
motion.
1 for 30 hours.
Changing
One
the
instead of 2.
Right, so you're changing it to amend it to 1 part-time position. That's the only change, right?
For the 30 hours.
Seconder,
For 30 hours, yes.
you agree? Councillor
Just
Chambers.
on a point of order,
Yes.
you can't amend a motion after it's been passed. You called the question 2 times.
Did we pass it?
No.
We passed it 2 times now, and now we're amending it, which in my opinion
Afterwards.
is not a friendly
Incorrect
amendment at
procedure.
all. It should be
What did we,
and then reintroduced, because it basically,
Thank
a
you.
critical need, you are, well, it's your ruling, Mr. Mayor, whether you're going to accept an amendment after the vote has been carried or not, but
No, it shouldn't.
organization
It shouldn't.
guideline, once the vote is carried, it requires a reconsideration
Should we have it carried?
for amendment, so that's your avenue.
I don't recall a vote on it.
I don't either. We never voted on
We
it.
didn't vote on it.
Twice,
Did?
not on the amendment, on the motion.
The motion.
I believe the mayor kind of called the motion, but after the amendment had already been stated, but before it was seconded, so. I'm not
That's right.
sure
It hadn't been
Where we go
seconded.
from,
Exactly.
That's correct.
Exactly.
so I don't know what the right answer is.
So I seconded the
Well,
amendment.
in the interests of complete democracy, I will have the seconder admitted, and we will vote on the amendment. All in favor of, everyone clear on the amendment? All in, to dispose of it. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Motion, amendment lost. Original motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. That completes
That gets done.
critical needs in short order. Now we're to next best management and number 5.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
Oh, that's a contract. How come it's a contract? It shouldn't be. It's 1 year.
As you would.
All in favor?
It's 1 year.
Opposed? Carried. Number 6, operating accounting assistant. Moved and seconded.
Wow.
Anyone want to speak? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 7.
Sorry.
Moved. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
You'll second it, Councillor
Somebody
Pierce?
wanted to speak to this one.
Speak? Go ahead.
Somebody wanted number 7 pulled.
Go ahead. Councillor Miller.
This position, business systems analyst, full-time, we have a description in our package. But when I was reading it, I was struck how similar that job in our package was describing a person we hired recently, Paul Casey, who is manager of business solutions. It says he will be focusing on how technology is currently used and how it can be built upon and improved. I'm just wondering, what's the difference between the two? What page what?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the Business Solutions Manager is responsible for the Business Solutions Analyst that we have listed there, as well as GIS. So the analyst will actually be doing the frontline work, dealing with the departments, as opposed to being the manager overseeing that and overseeing GIS. A lot of the functionality and knowledge required for the manager position is the same that's required for the analyst position, but they would be operating at a higher, more strategic level as a manager.
Thank you for that answer there, Robin, but I guess my question is, this manager just started, how do we know that we need a business systems analyst so soon after we just hired the manager? That I don't understand.
So last year, we had Prior come in and do an audit of the IT department and develop a strategic plan. So this is something that's come out of that strategic plan. And the reorganization of the whole IT department is broken down into a technical side and a business solutions side. So the business solutions side is what we're trying to develop now, and that will create greater efficiencies across the entire corporation.
Councillor Catward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the general manager. So this will be across the entire corporation, the analysts, business systems. So will he be redesigning, for instance, the website and all the way we do business on the website? Can you give me some examples?
So an example would be, well, we have a couple examples. So we just implemented the new recreation software. So that's where people can go online now and they can pay for their different programs.
Right.
Something that was sort of not looked at or an oversight because we don't have a business solutions person is that we also needed a POS, point of sale system. This recreation software had that built in. So a business solutions analyst would work across the corporation and look at who all needs point of sale updates or upgrades in their area. So they would be able to use this one new software to solve more than one problem. So you might have another department going out on their own looking to buy a point of sale, and this is just an example, but going out to buy a point of sale system, completely unaware that this capability is already there in our recreation software. So the business solutions person finds the best solution that suits the business, not just this particular silo, but looks across the organization to see if we can find mutually beneficial efficiencies.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could kind of make a little analogy of the purchaser that we approved last year, same type of thing. It's getting rid of the silo within the different departments. This is one to oversee the whole package, just like we did with the purchaser last year, and I am all in favor of this. I think it's a great idea.
Any other speakers? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 8? Moved and seconded.
That's a reduction. I like that.
Discussion. Anyone? Any speakers? Councillor Miller?
On paper, it looks good. At the end of the day, it comes down to who you hire. And that's so dependent on the person. When we look at an in-house solicitor, are we focusing, because lawyers have different specialties, real estate, criminal law, so forth and so forth. What would we be focusing on? There you go.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we would be looking for more of a generalist that has a municipal background.
Generalist.
A generalist. So look, we did an analysis of all the costs. We conservatively estimated how much work they could do out of all the expenses that we incur currently for legal services. And the work that they could do, I mean, we could actually use more than one of these and save more money, but they could take on so much work that is currently being farmed out.
I'm asking because I noticed, just for an example, at planning, Nancy Smith, she seems to be here a lot, so I don't know. I'd be tempted to go that way, but, okay, thank you.
Mover and second. Councillor Gatler?
Yeah, a generalist would be very beneficial to staff with.
Oh, good, you're in favor of the motion then.
I think I have the floor, thank you. Would be very.
Do you have a question?
Yes. A generalist would be very beneficial to staff with day-to-day legal questions. A municipal lawyer, would they be more helpful? Or
we would want a candidate that has municipal experience already.
Oh, so that's included with a generalist?
Yeah, we want somebody who has general, they can sort of dabble in all different areas of a municipality, but if they've already got the experience working in a municipality, that can only be a benefit.
So would it be somebody then too that could help us with planning? Because as was already stated, we spend a lot of dollars on planning and.
That would be ideal. I mean, obviously, we'll have to look at the candidate pool, but we want the most experience that we can get in a broad range of areas.
Okay, thank you.
Any other speakers? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 9, motion, please. Councillor Balma, who seconds? Council seconder, please.
I believe, yeah, the tax ratio move, so I'll make a motion that we decrease the industrial tax ratio to, I think it was 2.5, recommendation from staff. Let's see what that does.
It's at 2.5.
Yeah.
No, it's at 2.55 right now. Recommendation was to go down to 2.50.
Anyone? No speakers? All in favor? We're not getting people voting. I don't have enough to carry it.
Can I just make a clarification on Councillor Wheat's comment? I'd just like to make a clarification to Councillor Wheat on his comment about it not affecting the taxes. It doesn't affect the tax levy, but it doesn't impact the residential taxpayer.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, good
Yes.
point.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes? Did you have a question? Comment? None? Councillor Chambers.
And my comment is that I don't support changing the ratio. I don't believe that that change, it will impact the economy like it is
Good point.
designed to do with that small of an increase. So in my mind, it's negligible, and it is not going to serve the purpose that it's intended to do. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but I'm not supporting the change.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
Just a question too for Robin. Industrial, that includes gravel pits, does it not? I believe they're taxed at industrial.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we just have to check on that. We're just checking that right now.
Was the question, does it include gravel?
Does industrial, are the gravel pits treated as industrial?
No, it does not include them, does it?
We're just checking.
Oh, well, I think.
I don't want to give a wrong answer, so we're just double
That
checking.
has its own, it's been dealt with separately by the province, I thought.
Could I ask another question?
Councillor
Your Worship?
Baumann.
This will probably really blow your minds, but I was just wondering, what would a 0.05% tax decrease do to the average industry? What would it decrease their, yeah, okay, never mind.
Oh.
I don't have that calculation. Just
How
off
much
the
of a
top my-
break are we giving Adidas? Is that under industrial?
Are you
I don't,
saying?
I can get that information for you. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Our aggregate lands have its own? Well, I think I'm sure of that because I get the message from the aggregates committee all the time and read the details. I think that's separate. Do you want to leave this one at this time or do you want to deal with it? We have a motion, so I have no alternative but to deal with it. Oh, you're looking at the list of things. No, that's all right. So you can't conclude from that whether it's separate. Okay. Okay. Unanswered question. Do you wish to proceed with the motion? So here we are, division.
Motion on the table, sir.
Pardon?
There's a motion on the table that's been seconded.
Yes, I know, but I have an unanswered question in the interest of democracy.
Open and transparent.
Councillor.
We can move it or defeat it, but still get the answer at a later date.
Correct. All right, I will proceed. I will proceed. All in favor? Oppose? Motion is lost.
Mayor, I'd move I'll make the motion for the full Monty on 9 and 10. Sorry, we're just doing one line at a time.
We already did that. We just finished now.
You're
Sorry,
dealing
10.
with number 10 now?
No, but you did number 9 from down to 250. That was the motion, right? This motion here, correct me if I'm wrong, is that not to go right down to the 2.3?
We just passed number 9,
We just defeated number 9.
so we haven't got to number 10.
We're dealing with number 10. Is there a motion on number 10?
Sorry, the number 9 was, the motion was to put it to the 250. That was defeated.
Correct.
Yes, that's correct.
So now you're saying?
So what I am saying is I will move number 9 as is on this paper, which I believe, if I'm correct, would bring it down to the 0.2 or 2.3.
That's a farm tax.
Yeah, that was industrial we voted on.
Okay, but, sorry, but that's on the far end of that page, right? I'm on industrial.
Blue or green? Just did blue.
But the blue was for this one here.
Treasurer will speak
Right.
and inform us.
Do you,
Oh, I see. So that stays into it.
Right.
Ah, okay. All right. My apologies. I've cleared it up here with the.
Oh, we okay?
The 2.5 is across the board. Sorry, my apologies. I thought that.
Yes,
I thought the two were at, okay. So number 9 is gone, so we're on to number 10.
Number 10, do we have did we have a motion on 10?
Yep.
Did we have a motion? Pardon?
Yes, Councilor Coleman just
Yes.
made the motion.
Okay, Councilor Galvin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't support a decrease to 0.23.
Oh,
I think we should leave it at 0.25. I don't support
you're opposed to this?
adding $10.65 to every residential household and giving the farm class already gets a break on all the land and all their buildings, outbuildings for 25%.
But that's provincial legislation. That has to do with, that's not to do with,
all that revenue.
but the farm assessment outbuildings are,
I would like to call for a recorded vote of that.
sorry. I will recognize Councillor Bauman. What were you saying?
I apologize, Your Worship, for not speaking to the chair.
Thank you.
But I would like to ask for a recorded vote on the farm tax decrease to 0.23.
Thank you. Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I will not be agreeing with this. I do not think it's fair to the residential taxpayer. It's going to be a very hard thing to get reversed if we decide to reverse it. And I also know that Norfolk County is not supporting this, and they're our neighbors, so I cannot support this at this time. I think our residents are going to be very upset if they hear that we're starting to put a farm tax on their residential that a lot of them are unable to claim as income tax.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
It's my understanding when MPAC did this, they looked at sales from farmer to farmer. They didn't look at sales from farmer to developers, which is a big difference in
Yes, sir.
the amount of money involved.
Councillor, just a moment. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I went to the presentations from the Federation of Agriculture, and I mean, the arguments are solid, absolutely no argument with what they're saying, their numbers. I just don't like jumping from 0.5 to 0.23. I'd rather go 0.24, 0.23 next year, so I
I'm
won't
not
support.
catching what you're saying. What
I
would
won't
you
su-
rather do?
I
Do you
won't-
want an amendment?
No. What I'll do, I'm going to vote against the 0.23. If it's defeated, I will support 0.24, and I'll make that a motion if need be, so. I'd rather see the decrease happen over 2 years, that's all.
You would rather see,
Decrease happen over a 2-year period rather than all at once.
oh, I see. Councillor Simon.
Mr. Mayor, this is a question, it's a question regarding the residential tax. Is there a time when the residential tax can come back and ask for a decrease? Is that possible, or is that not possible?
I've never heard.
I don't know, I'm just asking the question.
I've never heard of a movement like that.
I think maybe
There-
Heather or Robin could answer that.
Thank you.
No, I don't think so.
I don't believe so. Residential is at 1%, like it's the,
So if it's 1% now, it'll be going to what, 1 point?
well, it's the base. It's only, the ratio is 1.
It's according to.
But if this gets approved, will it be going to what?
There is provincial legislation on farm tax.
I understand that.
Yeah,
And there is a range.
Yes.
We're at the bottom of the range,
yeah.
not at the top. Several municipalities have changed it, and we know that. They have changed, and it's a larger deduction. Councillor Bauman.
If I could try to help some clarity, if we give a tax decrease to farmland, the missing levy will be made up by the other tax classes, which will be the industrial and the residential.
That's right, the residential. That's exactly right. I'm not approving it.
Sorry, Councillor Chambers, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a kind of a complicated issue that
Yes.
you need to think of it beyond a tax shift to the residential class. This is a tax, property tax on farm land. And you'll recall, and I recall, a time where farmers used to get a tax rebate. They would pay the whole thing,
That's
and then they
correct.
would get
They-
80%. One year it was 100% back as a rebate. And that was based on the theory that farm land does not require the services that, for example,
Many.
a residence does.
Many services.
Farm land doesn't commit
Doesn't.
crimes, so it doesn't need police services. It doesn't catch on fire. Well, I guess it does catch on fire. It does not require a fire department to respond to a medical emergency. So there's all kinds of things that land does not require. That's why it's a reduction to 0.25, a quarter of what the residential rate is. So you have to understand that the calculation, you have to, in your mind, you have to develop in what you think a fair taxation for land is. And the Federation of Agriculture believes that 0.25 is too high. The other aspect that you have to consider is that the value of farmland has gone up considerably.
Unbelievable.
In terms of from $3,000 an acre to $20,000 an acre, and it's assessed accordingly. And that impacts the taxes that the farmland is providing. So if the value of the land increases dramatically compared to the residence, then the farmer who owns a farmland is paying a lot more and in essence is subsidizing the residents based on the value of his land.
Correct.
That's the thinking and the theory behind why the Federation is asking for it to be reduced, and I support that. If the farmland suddenly or over time decreases in value and becomes less of a, in value, an assessment, then the reverse happens, and you can reverse the tax ratio. And if you read the backgrounders of the OFA, it explains it a lot clearer than I do.
Yes, I think you have to realize that the farmhouse residence in an acre of land is extracted and not at the farm rate. And the farmland is paying for street lighting, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, parking, and so many things that it should not be. But because we don't have any special area rating, they pay for that. Out where I am, there isn't a light for the distance. I stumble around in the dark all the time because there are no street lights. Now, there is one at the intersection, one little light for the whole township. But we're paying for lighting in the town of Paris. So there are some inequities. That's all we're saying on this. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, I've got a couple
Yes.
questions. The first one is, there shouldn't, or should there be streetlights in the country?
There should be the...
Should there be streetlights in the country? I've never heard tell of it.
No, we're not saying that. It's not saying...
But you're saying there are none, and it's maybe because there shouldn't be any.
We are paying the levy for lighting in
Okay,
the areas.
my next question-
We help light up the areas, and we don't get any.
My next question is, Mr.
Now, we come
Mayor.
to town, we have the advantage.
My
but-
next question is, and I don't know this, and I'm going to
Well,
ask a farming community that does this. Is there a line entry on your income tax where you deduct taxes?
There are no
Because
special area.
I don't know, and
That's
I
the
have no
problem.
idea. And if there
At one
is,
time there was. We had special lighting areas.
Mr. Mayor, that's where I'm coming from when I say,
It's not,
re-
no, we don't. We pay for street lighting.
I'm not talking street lighting, I'm
I
talking
am.
about tax deductions on income tax. That's what I'd like to get clarified.
Oh, I.
Residences cannot declare their taxes on their income tax. I'm asking if a farming community can, because they're classified as a business. That's all I'm asking, because I don't know the answer.
And the question
You answered
is,
your own question. It's a business.
yes.
So you're
Yes.
allowed to do it?
It's a business.
Absolutely. A resident is not allowed to have,
It's not a business.
that's right. But I have to bear in mind, when you say about the lighting and all the sewers and waters, we pay for that. Not the sewers and waters, you don't. And the wastewater, you don't. Street lighting and curbs are the only two items that you pay for, but you also get a 3/4% discount compared to residences. 0.25 compared to 1%.
That is on the land.
That's
And-
right.
And the land does not require the services that a residence does.
It doesn't require the lights, it doesn't require the curbs, it doesn't
Exactly.
require the gutters.
That's
So you're
my-
getting that 3/4% discount for that.
And that's my point is that you have to calculate what the reduction of the land, the tax on the land should be to compensate for the services they're not getting. The government pegs that at 0.25 based on their historical tax rebate that they used to give farmers.
Okay.
So that is just a legislated number that apparently we can change
Yeah.
as to what the benchmark calculation was. So if we feel that that calculation is not fair, we can reduce it or increase it. I haven't sat down and did a calculation, but the OFA has. There's information you can receive for that. The big thing is the increase in value of the land, which increases the assessment of the land, which increases the portion of the overall taxes that the farmland is paying. And if that is increasing, then the draw on the residents is decreasing. So if you feel that the residences should not pay more because of
They shouldn't.
of the farm, then the same argument can be made, why is the farm paying more for the residents based on the value of their land increasing to such a dramatic extent?
Okay, then my next follow-up question would be, if this is a strategic measure that should be done by all communities, why are some communities not doing it, like Norfolk?
Why are Oxford, Kent doing it?
Because they've got small farming community.
Oxford has small farming communities?
Well, I don't know.
Take a drive.
I don't know. Anyway, Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Gatward,
Thank you.
I've got you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's your message.
Well, the same philosophy that Councillor Chambers explained about the increased assessment on farmland, bringing in more taxes to the municipality.
Yes.
So that we could lower the rate. And would we bring in the same? I'd like to know that from staff. And I want to point out, this past year, the market value assessment on residential has risen
It
because
has.
of the high housing prices. So that assessment, and they have redone the assessments, and they're going to phase it in. So our residential taxes are going up because of higher assessed values. They're also going to go up now because we're giving the farm tax ratio a decrease, and we're going to take a double hit, because our taxes have, our market value has gone up. I can't believe what the house next door to me sold for. And my taxes have doubled since I built my house, or more than doubled. And I guess, I don't think it's fair to our residential taxpayer. And by the way, the big farms are becoming bigger, the equipment is becoming larger, the tractors do use the roads, the combines travel the roads, so there's wear and
Yeah,
tear
they
on
use
our
roads.
roads and bridges. We had one bridge ruined down in the east end of the county by farm equipment, and we had to replace that bridge. So there is expenses to the municipality that comes along with farmland. So that's, I've said my piece, and I
Councillor
don't.
Powell.
The residential assessments have climbed quite
Yes.
rapidly.
I
A
know.
few years ago, we would never see a house being sold for $500,000. So the increased taxes are paying for the recreation facilities, the ambulance, the fire department, the library, and everybody gets to use those services no matter where you live. So there is an impact on the residential and how much they can bear, because their income probably may not have changed.
Councillor Coleman.
Well, yeah, you could go this many different ways. But I think Councillor Powell has just kind of summed up something right there. My bare land,
Bare land. That's what-
does not use one service out of the library. That's where it's all coming from. It doesn't use the library, and I'm not being picking on the library, but it doesn't use garbage collection either. We get all the shit that's dumped on us from all the urbanites that go by us, but it doesn't have garbage
is
service.
true.
That's why I can support this at point.
I'm picking it up constantly.
Call the question.
Councillor Bauma first. He had his hand up before.
I just need to add, comparing farm rates to residential rates is unfair because almost every farmer I know buys the property with the intention of keeping it for a long time and keeping it in the family for a long time. Whereas houses get flipped all the time and the with people using it as an investment. Very few farms are bought by farmers as an investment. They're there to keep their livelihood going. And so to compare those two, along with everything that everyone else has said, is simply, you're comparing apples and oranges. They're not comparable in that same way.
Councillor Simons
Mr.
again.
Mayor, I would just like to clarify.
Pardon?
I'd like to clarify one item. And Councillor Coleman stated that they don't get garbage pickup. Well, we went through an exercise.
Bare land does not create garbage.
Bare land.
That's what, this is.
So you're talking about the bare land doesn't collect garbage? Okay. Well, that's fair, but you're also getting 3/4% discount from the resident.
We should get 100% discount, because we don't have the services.
We have finished the debate on this crucial subject. We've commented on most aspects of the situation, and we've now arrived at that glorious time to make a decision. We have a motion, I believe, approving it.
Yes.
So,
Mr. Mayor, can I have one more question, please, if I may? I just want clarification.
you've spoken several
I
times.
understand that totally, but
Go ahead.
I want to get clarification if I may.
Yes.
So if with this gets approved, it's a $10.65
Oh.
hit on the income, on the residential tax. Am I correct? So the taxes on the residential will go up $10.65 on top of everything else. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
No, I was afraid of this, but I allow one, I got to allow the others. Councillor Pears.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally understand where this is going.
Yes.
And where it should go.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that. I'm just wondering if the mover and the seconder, I'm going to throw a wrench into things here.
Yes.
I agree something needs to be done. Would the mover and a seconder be opposed to a friendly amendment to put it to the .24 rather than the 2.3? It would cut it in half, pretty much.
I would ask the mover and second, you know who they are.
If the motion is.
Counselor, pardon? Yes, I know, but it's been a
Yeah,
request.
I was just asking.
It's a request which I will grant. I will ask the mover and seconder.
If we're able to do the friendly amendment, that's what I'm asking. If not,
Can
there
I
is a
ask
motion on the table.
Who's the mover?
Counselor Coleman.
Counselor,
I can live with .24.
the seconder, please.
Counselor Bamba?
Yes.
Would you agree? So, in effect, the motion is changed by the mover and seconder. I shall allow that. Councillor Gatward, last speaker, I hope.
So it's now 5:32?
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I just wanted to mention that
Yes.
some farmland does create garbage. Farmers are changing the way they farm. They put plastic down in their vegetable fields to keep weeds down, and when the crop is harvested, that plastic is loaded onto wagons and taken to the landfill. So there is some.
Which they would pay for if they take it, won't they? I think if you take anything to the landfill, you pay for it. Is my understanding.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But they're still using.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
And it gets rebuilt.
Oh, yes, it goes through, and we get paid for that. We should be getting income from that, and I'll ask Councillor Bradley to make sure that happens. You've heard
I'm
the,
glad to hear that because somebody asked me about
yes.
what happens.
We now have a motion on hand. Would you repeat the motion that we're going to deal with?
That item 10, farm tax ratio change from 0.25 to 0.24 be approved.
All in favor?
It was a recorded vote.
Yep.
Wasn't the first one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Opposed?
Happy compromise.
Carried.
Carried.
Correct. Thank you. And we'll now rush on to number 11. Capital.
Second.
Moved and second. Discussion, none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 12. Moved and seconded. Speakers? All in, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, why is the annual cost so high?
Oh,
$110,000.
For starting
He has to be an engineer, I think.
This isn't an
They
engineer.
peer review, don't they?
Technologist.
Which is a very smart guy. Yes, for you.
So are you, John.
Sorry, it would be a CET, a Certified Engineering Technologist. That's what we've kind of looked at the going rates out there. We track the job market fairly regularly to see what the comparable rates are. And where this fits in, we had sort of a pre-screening of the position and what the duties would be. And this is where it fell within the job grid. And it also includes benefits as well.
And it doesn't impact any of our current CETs?
No.
As far as pay equity?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Simon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mark, if I may. This will be the lot grading technology guy that goes around and peer reviews the engineer's lot grading. Am I correct?
Yeah, I can give you an idea of some of the duties they would do, like what happened at 47 Walnut, they would be looking after that. Severance applications, we look at the lot grading and drainage around those properties. They would be the point person for implementing, managing the site alteration bylaw, complaints on lot grading and drainage, reviewing grading certificates for subdivisions, things like that.
So we won't be going through these hassles and problems that we've already gone through with them with subdivisions. Is that correct? I'm hoping not.
Yeah, the idea is that we get complaints occasionally on lot grading and drainage within subdivisions.
Yes, we do.
This person would be looking at opportunities to, I can say, remedy the problems, to investigate it. The best example I can think of right now is with severances, because we get about 40 or 60 severances a year. What we do is we take a security deposit on that. The purpose of that is to look at lot grading and drainage around the house and the properties. Some councillors around the table have come to us about issues they've had in rural areas where there's been some severances, such as Harley. So we kind of use staff to deal with that and to look at it. The way we've structured it here is that we believe that 90% of it's going to be covered through fees, such as building permits fees, application fees, securities, administration. But there are going to be a portion of, we figure about 10% of it that's going to be dealing with existing issues in older subdivisions where there's neighbor complaints.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Powell?
I brought this up before, but does a lot grading technician have any clout over a grading engineer who puts his professional stamp on that whole subdivision? In other words, can the technician reverse change? And this engineer, that's, I assume, a provincial deal that he has, that when he puts his stamp on, that's it.
Yes, and I remember you asking this question before. I don't think I answered it very clearly, so I'll try again. A CET does not have the same clout as a PEng. A PEng puts a stamp on a drawing. It doesn't mean that a CET, such as Don Cunningham, who's our manager of engineering, can't look at an engineer's plan and say there are problems with it. We think you need to deal with it differently. If they disagree, then we could send it off to our peer reviewer, Ainley Engineering, who does our peer review currently. And that happens regularly. It's, I can tell you that some of the stuff that you look at, I've been in meetings with our manager of development engineering, where he's at the table, and he's, I think, a CET, directing PEngs and telling them the things they need to do. So there is that discussion, but ultimately, PEng stamp matters. If we got to a point where we think there is a dispute and we aren't happy with the engineer's review of it, we will send it out to a peer review, and that person could send it out to a peer review, such as Ainley. That already happens now.
All speakers, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 13?
So moved.
Moved. Seconder? Palma? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 14?
So moved.
Moved. Seconder? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 15?
So moved.
Moved. Seconder? Councillor Bauma? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 16? Recreation Coordinator, part-time to full-time. Councillor Bauma, Councillor Coleman, all in favor? Question, Councillor Gatward, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
I believe I read that this person is going to consolidate 4 part-time positions. Is that correct? And if so, why is there still an increase? And are the 4 part-time positions, are those people going to compete for this?
Part-timers.
Are they going to compete for this position, or how is this working?
Mr. Chair, it's replacing 4 part-time positions that we have in the budget. I don't know whether they'll compete for it or not. We'll eliminate certain positions. We carry a lot of contract, part-time, and seasonal positions in the department. It will be my intent to be trying to consolidate some of these positions into full-time positions. It's valuable in relationship building, it creates more stability, and we are having greater and greater difficulties filling this collection of the revolving door positions. So we feel there's a business case that's outlined in the decision package, and that this is a preferable way to go to create stability in the department, positive relationship building, and better management of our activities.
So some of the part-timers must not be very many hours, because it's going to cost us $30,000 more for this position, and we're putting behind us 4 other positions. Is that correct?
Agree, Mr. Chair, that this would obviously be a position paid at a higher rate than some of our part-time staff. There also isn't benefits attached to the current positions. There would be with this one.
Right, thank you very much.
No speakers, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. 17? Moved. Seconder, please. Councillor Coleman, seconds. Notice Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may ask Michael, Community Engagement Coordinator, I did read the article, but I didn't understand, and I need explanation from him what that is going to be involved with, what that position will entail.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a contract, a one-year contract we're proposing as a pilot. It's a bit of it's a relation of a lot of things that are going on. I think you'll be well aware of all of the initiatives that are rolling out of our society right now. I'll just name a few of them: the National Child Benefit, digital inclusion, Healthy Kids Community Challenges, the Safe Brantford Drug Strategy, age-friendly initiatives, our youth strategy. Some of these are delivered by social services. We pick up some of these activities. In addition, the Recreation Master Plan talked a lot about what I call relationship building with community groups. So these are the volunteer groups that come, that perform a lot of activities for our communities, but are struggling with the details, how to get insurance, how to organize themselves, etc. So we'd like to pilot this position. We've got a person kind of doing this work right now. We'd like to stabilize it as a contract and to try to start formally delivering these services, again, to make our community a better place to live in, to provide some resources around all these initiatives that are coming out that you hear about all the time. So hopefully that explains what we're trying to do. So.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, to Michael, you mentioned social services. Is this to also provide services for our social service program that we're doing in the county, that we've partnered with the social service in Brantford?
Your Worship, through you, so social services deliver a range of programs, and then sometimes they look towards us to support those programs. So, for example, they have income support for recreational activities, but they look towards the county to hook people up to that, our residents to hook people up to that income support. As just one example.
Okay,
so those are the relationships. But again, this is a growth field. There are a lot of initiatives coming through out of the province. There's a lot of initiatives coming through our community, around poverty initiatives, around community relations initiatives. I listed off a bunch of them, and this is our reaction to that. We either need to start beefing up and our staffing component, or we're not going to be able to support these programs.
So one final question, Mr. Mayor, where are you going to put her or him?
Mr. Chair, we have, through you, we have some space in Curtis Avenue. We've actually moved some recreation staff into the arenas. We've got some space at the Scotland Community Center we're now utilizing, so we have managed to free up a bit of space there. It's not very
thank you.
Beautiful space, but it's there. So.
Okay.
Wow. Adequate. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noticed that the city just hired a community relations manager and a community relations coordinator, so I'm glad we're not going for the manager just yet, so thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, I just want to say this is one recommendation that I do support, and I believe that we will basically, the benefits of this will pay for the position over time just with coordination of volunteer efforts. And it shows that we're willing to engage with the communities for the betterment of all. Some municipalities have whole departments that do this, and surely we should have and could have one position doing this, because I think it'll pay off.
Thank you. Completed. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 18, capital recreation utility van.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Anyone? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 19, assistant chief training, full-time.
I'll move it, but I want to get it up before, but I want to speak to it.
Thank you. Moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Simons? Councillor Wheat, please.
Yes. Some of us around this table have been here for a while. When the county amalgamated, we had one position that was a fire chief.
Right.
Then we created a position called deputy fire chief. That position was created, not so much for an individual because we didn't have to, but we created that position. And I dug it up. Duties, there are many. He develops the training program.
Training.
After training.
Yes.
Right there. We've got a deputy fire chief. He's supposed to be looking after training.
That's right.
He's supposed to be doing it. We've already got it. Since that time, we created that position. We've created 3 more positions called fire inspectors. We got 3 of them.
Yes, we do.
So that's 5. Now we've got another girl that works in the office that's full-time, plus a secretary. I can name her, Laura Tipper, I know her name.
Yes.
There's 7 people up there, but we've got a deputy chief. One of his duties is training that position. I don't care who it is. Deputy fire chief is to look
Yes,
after
it
training.
was.
That's right.
So I'm not supporting hiring another deputy chief to look after training, because we've already got one.
Me either.
Councillor Simons?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I have to say the same thing. I don't think we need it. We have a deputy chief that should be doing this. Hopefully he is doing this.
Somebody's going to speak to this. Well, Councillor Miller first, and then Councillor...
Thank you to Councillor Wheat, because that's my question. Who was doing the training before?
Pardon?
Thank you to Councillor Wheat, because that was going to be my question. Who was doing the training before?
I can respond to that.
Yes.
We hired Paul Watson. He was to become our chief. We hired him as our chief. But he was a qualified training officer. And he was doing a lot of it. Then the training officer from the city of Brantford retired. His name, I hate to name individuals, but his name was Norm Booth. He applied to join our volunteer fire department in Mount Pleasant Station.
That's right.
And he was hired as a volunteer firefighter in Mount Pleasant. But then he started helping Paul Wassel, who was our chief and was a qualified training officer. So was Norm Booth. He retired from the city.
Yes.
Lives right
That's right.
across the road from the Mount Pleasant Station. A perfect hire. He's one of our volunteer firemen. So he was doing it along with Chief Paul. And our deputy chief, who's supposed to be doing it, isn't doing it. But it's in his job description.
If I could follow that up too, it would be nice if we could ask tonight, is this, I know it's a request for a full-time, but is it for a full-time position? I don't know. We know the standards, the requirements, they're constantly going up. I understand that. And maybe that's why, but it would be nice if somebody could speak to that.
Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, can I recommend or ask, I better put the K on the end of that we give that job description to the chief so he understands that there is already that duty within one of the job descriptions within one of his staff.
Councillor Bowman. Got your name down.
Well, and in the chief's defense, I believe that, he stepped into this after most of this stuff was prepared. And so, in setting up, I'm sure that's part of the communication stuff, because you'll remember when he made his budget presentation that he said, he actually told us that most of this stuff had been prepared already before he got on scene, and that this position was a recurring unmet need as far as his knowledge was. So I'm sure that will be communicated to him.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, I'm sorry he's not here tonight. I don't know what happened. That may have been a miscommunication, I thought. Anyway.
Sorry, what was your proposal? We have a motion on,
I put the motion on the floor,
to be,
on the floor, but then I said that I'm
yes,
not going to
support it, and you gave the reasons. Yes, oh, I know, any other speakers? If not, the motion is on the floor. All those in favor? Oppose? Motion is defeated. So we're to enhance services. And the first is offering tree removal and trimming.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Speakers? Councillor Miller.
Does this include stump removal? Well, I'm asking because I know there's a lot of stumps people complain about.
Tree removal.
Mr. Chair, we would use this money for stump removal as well. We don't remove all the stumps. We remove stumps which are, I think, high-profile stumps, if you could give them that name.
We also have this problem of trees with limbs overhanging the roads, low limbs overhanging the roads, that we get requests on occasion, get those limbs off those roads, because they're interfering with machinery moving primarily.
Your Worship, what I could say is that, I think our existing budget is probably adequate, but we're dealing with an upswing in work right now around emerald ash borer, which is killing off a lot of additional trees that normally wouldn't be dying. And so this is what I'm going to call catch-up money. I don't think I'll need it more than 1 or 2 years, and then we could probably put it back into give it back. So,
please.
Thank you, and would that include, since you're also the cemetery's general manager, would it include tree cutting that needs to be done in some of our cemeteries to prevent damage to headstones?
No other speakers?
He's going to answer my question.
You had a question?
Mr. Chair, it'll be used across all municipal road allowance, all parks, cemeteries, all municipal properties.
Everything, thank you.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're to the next one, 21 capital. Burford Water and Wastewater Servicing. It moved and seconded. We have a second. Councillor Pierce. Discussion by anyone? Councillor Chambers.
And I understand the purpose of this. This is the study that would be basically on the shelf if something came forward, which I think is a good idea because you want to be ready if something does come forward. What I want to just clarify is that this is not looked at this time as a move to service the town of Burford.
Right.
But that really has to be communicated correctly, that it's a study basically to be in place if indeed when that decision comes forward. But it's not the first step of the next step and the next step. And that really has to be made clear because it can be very much misunderstood and cause a lot of grief to an eventuality.
Mr. Bradley?
Agreed, Mr. Chair. This is really the first step for us to determine if there is a servicing solution, and then at that point, then it's another decision for council, maybe for other levels of government to determine if Burford will be serviced. But
Councillor Gatward.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last year, we had $10,000 in the budget for this particular item to do monitoring. What was the outcome of that?
Mr. Chair, I believe that was monitoring for background. That's ongoing monitoring for background phosphates in the water. I assume that's just so that we have background information, that will be a contributor to this study, so.
Yeah, it referenced the EA, so I thought maybe they were going to monitor the nitrate levels in the town of Burford to see how bad or not bad it was. But I guess I'm wrong, then you did a phosphate?
It's phosphate, I think it was phosphates, nitrates, and there's something, as I recall, and it was just basically to my understanding, again, I can't quite remember the details, but it was to assemble background information so that we had that data to go forward with.
Did we ever see that information, or no? I guess not. I don't remember.
Councillor Chambers?
It's my understanding, and Councillor Gass, a little bit wrong, the monitoring has been going on for years,
Yes.
for 20 years. In certain locations, some work was to be done to maintain the monitoring points, and that was what the discussion was last year. But the water is continually monitored with about 7 or 8, I don't know, I lost track of sentinel wells, and those results are available at the department. But it wasn't something that we just did last year to find out something. It was ongoing maintenance dollar issues to keep the system going ahead.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This money, a lot of the items we see, we're going to spend the money, and that's the end of that. It's gone. And that's this is one of them. But I view this more as an investment, I think, in the future than anything. And if we don't start now, well, we never will. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. And number 22, did we vote on it?
No, we haven't voted yet.
Oh, we haven't voted on it. Had discussion, motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 22.
I'll move.
Moved, seconded. Speaker?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to this, please.
Councillor Simons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may ask Michael, because I will get asked at the BIA, what is a high-end portable washroom? And where are we going to put this high-end portable washroom?
It's one that flushes.
I don't think so. For $15,000? I don't think so.
Mr. Chair, this would be to rent a what I would call a nice porta potty. So you see these at events.
With a container to close it off at the front. Am I correct?
I think we're still, we believe that this is what it would cost us to get one of these into Paris. It's on a little trailer, it's nice, it's heated, it's got running water.
And where will we put this? That's the concern we have.
We are still reviewing that at this point. We've got 2 or 3 ideas, but I think, I was going to see if council was interested in this. We will then figure out what we're exactly going to order and then figure out where it would fit.
I think we will, we must approve this because.
Councillor Wheat?
If you went to the Paris Fair,
Yes.
that's what's called high-end washing.
So if I may ask, Mr. Wheat, you put your foot on a paddle and the water comes out to wash your hands, is that what it's called? Is that what it is? Am I correct?
It's not your standard little.
I don't know. Okay.
Washrooms at the Paris Fair, not enough to handle everybody. Bring in high-end portable washrooms.
That's what they're called.
So I would expect the DIA will find places to put it. The person that actually owns it, you don't. They will come and hook up to it, take it away, get it cleaned out, and turn it back.
They do?
Okay, and may I ask one more question? Will this be done immediately, Michael, as soon as the budget's approved? Don't make, listen, this is an outstanding, huge item at the BIA, and these staff can contest.
we will get it ordered as soon as we can.
So it won't be summer or fall next year?
No.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that, Michael, thank you. 'Cause
Any other speakers? No other speakers? All in favor? Opposed? Did we get a vote?
My bear farmland,
we
yeah,
get a
support.
vote?
I am motion.
Carried?
We just pull them pants down and go.
Number 23. 23, please. Let's hold together. We got to hold together a little while longer. Councillor Pierce moves. Councillor. Got a mover and a second. Councillor Miller.
Just, I know where the operations descriptions are. I don't know where the capital descriptions are for these.
Do you have a question?
Yeah,
I may not if I can find the information. Okay, roll right after. Okay, thank you.
I like the sound of it anyway, Nith River Trail.
Next section.
Councillor Bauman.
If I could speak to it, Your Worship, there's more and more data coming out
Waterways wants to.
on the, if you build a brand-new trail and pave it, the payback in economic development taxes and health is 5 to 7 years. And so spending a few dollars here on trail development, I think there's, I saw PricewaterhouseCoopers report that every kilometer you get someone to walk saves the health system 43 cents. So $10,000 is money well spent on a little bit more trail.
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Darren Ayers suggested a few years ago that this trail be closed off for safety reasons. And that's why it was closed off. I walked it a couple times. I think Councillor Powell did also. And it is treacherous. It's dangerous. And I would probably say it's going to take a lot more than $10,000 to repair this trail. It's already there, but it's a very dangerous because it's got roots coming out of it, and in the spring, they have mudslides, and it is a dangerous trail. I don't think Paul would agree with that.
Oh, I know, I walked it too.
It's
$20,000.
$20,000, yeah.
That's right.
I just want to make council aware, it is there already.
Yeah.
Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'm glad you guys have walked it because I haven't. And can you tell me exactly where it is, please?
Yes. Yeah.
And take it straight and right around the river, and it takes you right out to the edge of Lions Park.
There'll be a tour later. There'll be a tour later tonight.
Thank you.
Well, you can direct it.
I know what you mean.
It's called Distillery Trail because there used to be, 100 years ago, a number of distilleries and houses up on that. Yeah. Not quite. The mayor would.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Burford AV Equipment Capital. Moved by Councillor Wheat, second by Councillor Bowman. Discussion. Councillor Miller.
Where's the banquet room?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's the upstairs room. At the Burford Community Center.
Any other speakers? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next. Asphalt multi-purpose pads, Scotland Community. Move it. Councillor Gatward, second. No? You're seconded. Thank you. Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How large is this?
Do you want Mr. Bradley to return to station? Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Chair, I think there's a standard size. They're about half the size of a tennis court, I think, approximately. So it's a multi-use pad. The idea is a group of kids can play some basketball on it. They can play any number of kind of ball sports. They can ride their skateboards on it. It's a nice, just kind of general use, kind of open, unstructured facility for the kids in the area. So.
can't do all that on the one that they put in the Oakland Community Center. So thank you for that.
Anyone else? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Customer service hours increased, 26. Moved it?
Moved.
Seconder, please. Councillor
26.
Pierce. Discussion and questions? Councillor Gatward?
Where are these increased customer service hours? At which offices?
Newport.
I heard that.
Your Worship, these are to increase basically customer service hours at the Brant Sports Complex primarily, and at Sill Apps. Mostly at the Brant Sports Complex, that's where we deal with most of the registration traffic. And we are struggling, certainly in the off hours, because they are very. I think we discussed the other night, very busy places. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number 27, operating.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Speakers? None. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
They're supposed to be.
28. Moved and seconded. Any speakers?
Is this is in
Councillor
Paris,
Gatward?
correct? Oh, okay. I think I read that. Yes, it's to include other communities like St. George and Burford, correct? Yeah.
Is that a question to anyone, Councillor Gatward?
I got my answer.
No. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 29.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Any speakers? Councillor Miller was first.
When this was referred to budget, I thought we might see it in the community grants portion of it. So it's a little more than I thought we would see. And when we're contemplating that kind of money, I ask myself, is this what we should be spending ratepayer money on? I also ask, can we see the budget? And they did give us a financial overview. But there is, of their total expenses, 3.2 million, there's 1.3 million. We have no idea what they spend their money on. Now, the 100,000 that's in here is, I think, 18,000 shy of what we have to give to the Long Point Region Conservation Authority, and we get their full budget. We have a member of this council on that board, and they come every year and discuss the budget with us, and I don't see any of that here. So I'm having a hard time with that whole amount.
So are you saying we should only put the current amount in here?
I'm not sure.
Are you making a change or suggestion?
I'll see how the vote goes, Mr. Mayor.
So, Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have we finished paying our levy to the St. Joe's Life Care Center that we promised to pay them for so many years?
Are we done this year, or did we finish last year?
And how much was that?
It's less every year.
2018 is the last year of our commitment to St. Joe's. The difference of that is, though, being moved to the reserve for John Noble Home.
Right.
Councillor Pierce?
So, wait a minute, I didn't get my question
not
fully
finished?
answered.
Yes.
I asked how much it was, and so you're saying that the money, that because we won't be sending it to the Life Care, will go to the John Noble?
Correct.
And how many thousands of dollars is that?
Give me a minute.
Okay, because if we were giving the Life Care Center X amount,
Yes.
I'm thinking we should give the hospice perhaps that same amount. And I agree with Councillor Miller that we need to see more information because this is tax dollars. And our taxpayers currently, on their own, support this facility. They support it with donations. It is a charity.
Yeah.
So Heather's just gonna come up with it.
Councillor Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. A couple things on this one. Yes, it is all charitable. That's how they run it. They were in here, they did a presentation. They went through a lot of things. I think everybody around this table knows at least 1 or 2 or 10 people that have benefited from what they do. There's no question as to what they do and how important it is what they do. I think it's a great idea. I agree that it is a big chunk of money. I understand that. I would absolutely be willing to support half of that, $50,000 a year. We'll see how the vote goes on the 100, but I absolutely think it's an incredible thing. I'm all in support of what they do, all in support. I believe that we should be helping them out. They have helped out many members of our community and will continue to do so.
Yes, sir.
I've just got a little bit of a problem with the 100,000, that's all.
Councillor Bauman?
Thank you, Your Worship. When I consider the work that's done there, well, I'll go further back. When I consider the work, the money that we put into our arenas and sports centers and community centers and everything else, how viable they are, which I am 100% in support of because of what they do for the community. When I see the return on investment that we get to for our people when they need it most at the Life Care Center and the Palliative Care Center at BGH, I consider $100,000 a very small investment of our entire budget, and I think that's something that I would be very happy to justify to a taxpayer and say that we put $100,000 into that so that it's there and available when people need it, because their budget is very, very much self-funded, and I think the community service that is done for that that we will get, that all of our people will have access to when they need it for the $100,000 ask is very small. However, I'll be willing to support anything. So if this doesn't pass, I'll be more than happy to support something else. But I think that this is a very small investment for our community when they need it most. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, oh, yes.
So-
Response to Councillor Catworth. Thank you.
So our commitment to the St. Joe's Life Care was $271,000 per, $271,000. Now that was divided, decreasing over 4 years.
So 271 for 4 years.
That, 271 in the first year, and then was decreased by a quarter each of those years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Wheat?
I'm certainly supporting the 100,000 a year. Anybody else?
Yes.
I hope you don't have to go through what I
Right.
went through this summer. I'm going
Yes.
to tell you something. You're gonna. Because there's an
And-
expiry date on every human being.
Yes.
Every human being has an expiry
Correct.
date. And
Correct.
even if you don't get in that home, they come out to you so that you don't have to deal with one of your family members.
No.
And I saw it firsthand. We lost an employee because Leslie Lee, because she went there, because she saw the value firsthand.
Thank you. Councillor Miller?
Mr. Mayor, that's not the argument. I don't think anybody questions the value of it. I mean, I've been there many times visiting people that I know. I don't think we're questioning that. What I'm questioning is, well,
Right.
I raised it before, but I'll leave it at that.
And maybe what we need to do, Mr. Mayor, we're going to get this request every year, is ask for their budget so that we have their more details. If we're going to contribute $100,000 per year of taxpayers' money, just so we can be accountable to the taxpayers. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear on what you're saying. We're dealing with this year's, or 2018 budget,
Yes.
which includes 100,000.
Yes. And we don't have the actual budget from the
Oh.
Lancaster Stanton Community Hospice.
Oh, I see.
But in the future, if they're going to apply for funding, then we should ask them for their budget, like everyone else. Thank you.
And did we not do that? Did we not do that? I'm sure that's easily obtained.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did ask for information in a different format than was originally submitted, and they did provide that information, and I think they'd be happy to provide us whatever we asked for. We didn't ask for the detailed financial statements, but like I said, I'm sure they'd be happy to provide those.
Thank you. Councillor Simons, did you have a...
I would just like to say that I agree with John. I've been through it, I've lived
Yes.
it, I've done it, but I'm not looking at it at that aspect, because that is a time in life
Care
that
is
everyone
needed.
does go through. But I'm looking at the fact of possibly seeing the financials, to see exactly where they are, to let people know, the residents know that we have done our job. So I'm not against
Oh, I know.
I'm just thinking we should be finishing the job, that's all, by asking for the financials.
Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I fully support the 100,000, and I'm going to ask at the appropriate time for a recorded vote.
Thank you. Any other speakers? If not, all in favor, and it's asked for a recorded vote. Sorry.
You were saying that bring their financials every year, this is for 10 years. So
Yeah,
are
are
we
we-
saying?
No, sir.
That's
Yeah,
exactly what it
that's-
It
says.
may say that,
This is for
but
10
we are
years?
dealing this 2018 budget. The only amount that we can approve is the amount for 2018. We cannot, and especially, we may be, well, you know what this talk about, a possibility of a lame duck, not that lame duck council, but we cannot commit future councils. We cannot do that.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could follow up on that,
Yes.
then for next year's budget, it will appear in that top portion,
Yeah.
as has the Optimist Clubs and all that, which we,
Exactly.
every year. So you can't say that we don't do that, because we do.
Yes, we do.
Well, it's only suggested, it
I
says.
don't know the reason it wasn't there this year, actually.
Yeah, because it should be there.
But it's never been there before, but
It's a lot of money to commit for
the
2 years.
decision of this council is we are dealing with the 2018 budget, and that's all we can approve. We can't commit future councils.
So we could just cross out that last line, Mr. Mayor, that says suggested contribution of $100,000 a year for 10 years.
No,
And
but
let them know.
that's merely what it says. Suggested contribution of $100,000
Yeah.
per year for 10 years, so it'll be there next year.
So we're not
It's a
approving that.
No, we're not committed to it.
We felt it was best that that be
Oh,
put in
it's
there.
fine.
Because because the alternative would be not put in there.
Yes.
And
And then
then
you
it's not
don't-
full
No.
disclosure to you. But now you know that they're gonna be back year
Yes,
after year.
but it's not committing us.
But you're not committed
To
to
that ongoing, in a sense, maybe individually to members, you feel committed. That's one thing, that's how you vote. But the commitment is $100,000. We're only dealing with 2018 budget tonight. And there is a move to, motion to approve the $100,000 in the 2018 budget. And we've been asked for a recorded vote.
Yeah, it's too bad, but.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
So, where are we?
What does that bring us up to?
Are we done? It's freezing.
Next,
What is? It didn't move.
next.
I believe that was the last one.
Pardon?
That was the last decision package.
Thank you.
Can I just answer a question that was raised earlier about the tax class of gravel pits. That was raised earlier, so I did look it up. And there was recently a ruling with MPAC that gravel pits will now be classed as farm, which is a move from industrial.
Oh, my God.
So that,
Oh, my God.
that just happened
We just got
this year.
nailed. We just got nailed big time.
Sorry, what is, I'm not hearing, what are you telling us? That
Gravel pits are in the farm tax class,
5%.
not industrial. There was a ruling made earlier this year that moved them out of industrial into farm.
Wow. What a shame.
So they pay 25%?
Gravel pits are now assessed as farms.
You're correct, that change was made. It was made, you're right.
That's, yes, this year.
That's right. Can we separate them?
Oh, so now they can rent
Councillor
our
Pierce.
roads for 25%?
Thank you,
That's
Mr.
right.
Mayor. If I could, for clarification here, so if I'm reading this correctly, what they're saying there is it's an increase of $83.07. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so if we go back to this page, and we approved everything as it was written on this page, it was only 83.31 increase. And there was one at 515 we didn't, one at 591 we didn't. We chopped the 10 and a half in half.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out the numbers.
How?
I'll ask the treasurer to recheck the formulas and the numbers.
Because we cut the fire.
We cut like,
We
we
didn't
cut
include
591,
farm
we cut
tax.
515, we cut 532.
Yes. Just give us a couple minutes to look at that.
So we've cut 1638. No, I'm not, all that separate though. I'm just talking, if you look at that page we were given originally, right?
Yeah, they're changed. That's right about gravel pits.
Yeah, that's all.
As farmland, tax as farmland. That's the same category as farmland. Sorry, I gotta be careful what I say. Yes.
Okay, so the numbers that you had originally didn't include the two top items that you approved at the beginning. The, I can't see from here, the funding for the South Dumfries nonprofit housing and the Brant Historical Society. So those were not included in the numbers originally.
That's why.
$83.07.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Councillor Chambers, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to go back to what Brian's brought up, seems like a couple hours ago, with regard to the new positions and the wage complement that is shown in the budget as an annual cost.
Yes.
If the hiring does not take place on January 1st, there is an impact,
Yes.
a lessening impact on the budget.
Oh, that's.
I'm wondering if,
Yes.
by using a reasonable estimate on when the positions are going to be filled,
Yes.
whether that
Would
can
make-
be reflected in the, our budgeted, actual budget, rather than, you know what I'm saying? If it's going to cost $100,000
Yes.
for a road grader operator that we're going to hire, and we're only going to hire them in July, that's a $50,000 savings that somehow is collected and is in the system somewhere, and I don't want to see that
to create a known surplus.
Yeah,
It's creating a surplus.
So if we can make a reasonable estimate of when the positions are going to be filled and
Who turned the
put
heat
that
on?
in the budget rather than the annual cost, that may have a fairly large impact on the tax increase because we're adding a lot of positions. So I'm wondering what that would,
Good point.
how that would affect.
So three-
Councillor Bauma, please.
If I could comment on that, I think that's why, looking back, we always run a surplus at the end of the year, because a lot of these costs will come into effect until partway through the year, which gives us a nice little cushion. And so I think if we start doing that, which I'm not opposed to, but we then just have to make sure that we count on the fact that the surpluses that we normally run will be quite a bit tighter. Or for that matter, you can also say that the surplus directly have to go against the tax levy next year as opposed to being used for something else if we want to leave that. So I kind of like it the way it is because it's not a tough tax.
Well, there's a cushion.
And then we also know that if we something else worse happens, which happened this year,
There's a cushion.
that we have something else.
There's always something else.
And if I could respond to that, and I understand that, it's always nice to have some expansion in the budget, but we have reserves that are designed for those situations that are ongoing reserves. There's a philosophy that says that a municipality shouldn't have a lot of reserve because it should be in the pockets of the taxpayers rather than in the bank of the municipality. So in a 3.3% increase is more than what I would like to have, and I think it's more than what anybody would like to have, although it's not debilitating. But if you can reduce that to 2.75, that allows money to remain in the taxpayers' pockets, which is the ultimate reserve of operating the municipality.
Councillor Powell, please.
Just an overall comment on the budget. The city of Kitchener started to put money into an account which pays down their long-term debt. And they've brought in a 10-year plan in order to do that.
Yes.
Now, I just wondering if sometime in the future, if our staff would be able to get a hold of how they're doing it, how it works out, and if we had some sort of idea, if we put $1 in to pay down long-term debt, what benefit do you get from that? Like $1.50, $2? So is there any economic implications or studies as to what a fund like that would do for us? I know we did an excellent job on asset management for 3 years, and we stuck to it and reached the amount. So could you give consideration or look at such a thing to help pay long-term debt? Because the long-term debt's getting bigger, and we need to find a way to, some way to reduce it. So it's just a suggestion if you're able to do that in the next few months or whatever.
Well, we certainly can take that under advisement and have a look at that. I mean, we do increase, and we did this year increase the budget, the operating budget, to repay additional debentures that were issued. And that's typically how we do it. We just build that into the budget as it's issued. But you do need to balance what you have in reserves against what you, or what you have in investments against the debt that you're borrowing at the same time.
Well, that's the old philosophy. In good times, you should reduce your debt, and then in bad times, you can juggle it some other way. But
So we're in committee of the whole, and I guess we continue that way to deal with number 9, right? Pardon? Councillor Gatward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Throughout all of this, we didn't ask, what did staff factor into the budget for a salaried employee for an increase for the year? Like,
What did we include in the budget?
yes,
We included 1.75, yeah,
1.75 is what the employees will receive.
that's correct.
And the union was,
Well,
did we have a settlement yet? or-
we have a settlement with the power workers, and I believe it's in excess of that. We don't have a settlement with
Yeah,
OPSU, right.
So the power workers were how much?
I'm going to have to double check with Michael. 2%.
2%. Okay, thank you.
We'll report on that at council, because the vote just occurred. They vote ratified 59% of the employees.
They have-
So it was close.
They did ratify.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything in addition to the number 8? Done the overview, number 8. Who is presenting that? Somebody presented that?
Number 8 is the decision packages.
Pardon?
Number 8 is the decision packages we just went through.
Number, that completes, so we're not to number 9 then?
We just need the final budget resolution, if Heather
Yes.
has that prepared.
Who is prepared? It is prepared with the changes? Or is that a problem at this time?
One second.
Heather. Number 9.
That comes after.
That comes after.
After?
Yeah.
Because we should have, should be done. Should be done before the council meeting.
Oh, when I saw who this was from, I said, it can't be to me.
First, we have the final budget recommendation, and it's up on the screen, is that the 2018 budget with revenues of $67,682,000.
67 million.
$682,008. Expenses of $118,915,665. And a property tax levy of $51,233,657 be approved.
Moved by Councillor Baumann, second by Councillor Coleman. Councillor Pierce, please.
If I could, through you, Mr. Mayor, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if I'm off on my own little thing here, but from what Councillor Chambers was talking about earlier,
Yes.
that's factored into all that, right? And the more I think of it, the more he's got a very valid point. We've got a lot of new staff on here, which is great, don't get me wrong. But unless they've already been interviewing for these positions, chances are it's probably going to be 3 months, on an average. So what I would propose here, I would like to throw a motion, if I could, that we recalculate those figures at the reduction of 25% each to allow for the 3 months for each of those positions to be filled, and see what we come back up with.
Okay, can I just say something here? Just so you understand what you're doing here, and I'm sure you do, but maybe some of you don't. When you do that, that's called gapping. The city of Brantford did gapping quite a bit, and I think if you talk to them, they got in some problems with gapping. Because what happens is, you save some money today. Say you only have 75% or 65% of the cost of that position, but that's in your base. So when you start off next year's budget, you've got to make that up before you start doing anything. So the base isn't going to be 0.56%. anymore, like you had the luxury of this year, it would be some higher number,
Yes.
because that's another factor that you have to have. I'm just saying, you can do that to help this year.
To help this
But
year.
you do pay
It
for it
does
next
help
year.
this year.
And that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so as a follow-up, if I could, for that, Mr. Mayor, that's why you're CAO, because you talk to us like that, and I never thought of it that way, so thank you.
But you can make.
No,
you as a
you just,
council make that
you just
decision.
you just made perfect sense. I didn't think of it that way, because you're absolutely right. That would reduce it, let's say, 0.5% this year, but you're right, that 0.5% is gonna be added on next year before we even start. I never thought of it that way, thank you.
Councillor Gatworth, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the city gapping program was if a staff member left and they didn't fill the spot,
Yes.
they didn't fill the spot, they
That's correct.
saved money in the
They did that
budget.
several.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
That's true, that's
And
another.
I always thought of that as gapping. But in essence,
Oh.
Councillor Chambers is correct, that we are collecting 3 months of salaries for any new positions we approved that we don't need to collect. And I'm not sure how much money that is. However, I think we do need to know. Maybe it's $100,000 that we just gave to the last item on the budget. So I think we should check that. I'm sure with an Excel spreadsheet, it can be easily done.
Yeah, we'll get that.
And if we took a 5-minute recess, we could get that number and then come back and see what it is.
I'll be able to clarify this.
I think we should leave it, Mr. Mayor, until next council meeting and have that figure before we make the final decision.
Councillor Chambers.
There is a methodology. You can collect that, but the question that will be asked is, what happened to that money that we
That's
saved by
correct.
not doing that?
Oh, it's-
So
it
if
is.
we know how much that is, a companion resolution on what to do with the surplus wage comp may be in order. Whether that go into a debt reduction system, or as Willem had mentioned, that comes off the next, that, I could be satisfied with that, but what I don't want to have happen is a couple $100,000 be collected from the taxpayer to pay wages that aren't paid as wages, and then end up being paid in playground equipment for Timbuktu. That's where I have a hard time explaining that to people. But if there's a resolution that identifies that and has a use for that, then I'm fine with that, because I'm more than happy to defend this budget as it is. That's
Just
what
on
I'm
that point, Your Worship, we can quantify that as it's happening, like, as you say, they're not going to start January 1st. So every one, there's going to be a bit of savings, but some might be 6 months out because of market conditions, or somebody accepts a job and then doesn't take it. So we can be putting that into a bucket, and then you as council direct where that bucket goes.
Reduce the debt.
And just one more thing, that may be in essence how the ambulance situation is with the city. That may be a selling point or whatever, to allow them to be happy with what we've done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Michael's just done some math and looking at what positions could actually be filled right away and what ones might take some time. He's come up with a number of about $70,369 that we wouldn't necessarily incur those costs right away.
Right. Thank you.
And it's not as much as I thought it would be, to be honest with you.
Councillor Gatworth.
Well, I liked Councillor Powell's idea about reducing the debt. Our debt servicing is, over $500,000. And I think that any monies that can be paid against that should be. Because the more debt, of course, the more interest and the less money we have in the budget to spend on other things, in my opinion. And I can recall, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you do, back in about 2002 or 3, we had zero debt, because it was a big announcement that you made about that. And everybody was very pleased, and now
It's
we're
a way
in
to
a...
live, if possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
And now our debt has climbed again, so I like the idea of reducing it. That's my opinion. And
Rather than
if we
increasing
want a companion motion, as Councillor Chambers mentioned, then I'd be happy to make that, because I don't think we're allowed to budget a surplus.
Do you wish to respond to
I was
that?
hoping it'd be more like 700,000.
Councillor Baum.
I disagree. There is good debt.
Yes.
All
Oh,
businesses utilize that effectively, and I think.
No one said
we
there
also
isn't.
We are falling well within
Yeah.
our recommended levels for debt in order to do the things that we have to do. There's some
To be
debt
done.
I would never mind going debt for operations, for example.
Right.
I have a big problem with that. However, so that
Capital.
wasn't where I was going, I was because, again, I think I said that last year too, having observed the tradition of asking for a recorded vote on the budget, I would like to make that request if you're ready to call it, because I do like us all to stand together for the budget.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Councillor Coleman.
just,
I haven't had that a long time ago, and you keep missing. These figures in front of us are the reality. And if you go to this gap measure crap, it's not reality. And that's just what we gotta have, is reality figures in front of us. So I'm fully supporting these figures, and I fully support what I'm calling for a recorded vote.
So do we have a motion before us?
Yeah, it's the motion that's read, it's up there.
Councillor Chambers.
And Mr. Mayor, recognizing now that I have the figure, it may be, I'm not going to say it's inconsequential, but that is an amount that can be dealt with at the end of the year in terms of a surplus. And quite often, when we deal with the surplus at the end of the year, we attribute so much to debt, and that's where to do that, with that amount. If it was, and I admit, I was thinking it was more like a couple 100,000, which would have a larger impact, but I can support this and deal with the surplus, recognizing there should be a surplus of at least 70,000, and deal with it at the time. Or let the next council deal with it, I guess is what it'll be.
So we have a motion. And it is.
I just had a comment to make about the debt. We cannot pay down any debt issued by Infrastructure Ontario. There's no prepayment option on that.
Our payments are set.
Our payments are set, and you cannot prepay.
Principal and interest.
Right. You also cannot take out debt for the purpose of operating. You can only take out debt for capital.
Yes.
That was my...
Thank you. Councillor Wheat.
3.31. I remember the days when we were looking at 4.75 and 5% and 5.25. 3.31. Good.
So we have a motion.
Yes.
That says.
Do what we did. Enhanced washroom downtown there.
I think it was higher last year.
There's the
Aye. What is our motion?
The motion is, again, that the 2018 budget, with revenues of $67,682,008, expenses of $118,915,665, and a property tax levy of $51,233,657 be approved.
Unfortunately, Councillor Carney is not here. I know why he isn't here.
Move to go out of committee of the whole.
We have one more. Oh, sorry, everybody. Number 9, we have
Number
excluded
9.
expenses report.
Any questions on number 9? Who's presenting this? You have a motion?
No, but I just wondered, Mr. Mayor, on number 9, if we've finished with the closure costs and so on with the Burford landfill, because this was for Burford and Paris.
Sorry, the question is to whom?
The treasurer.
What's happened?
What was your question?
Is it still for Burford and Paris, or is Burford done?
It would still be for both.
So these post-closure costs are still for Burford and Paris landfills. When would we be finished with the Burford landfill?
These are post-closure, so they go on.
Forever.
Forever?
That's the way it is.
Why didn't other landfills have to go on forever then? Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Too bad we got stuck with
Some of
Burford.
them have been cleaned up, but.
I'll move the recommendation.
And maybe that would be good to check, just to see if there are any that, after so many years, are finished. So.
Moved and seconded, call a vote.
You approving this?
Yes.
I
Moved
moved
and
it.
seconded.
Yep.
Any questions? None? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next steps,
Move to go to committee of the whole.
this is regarding the budget.
Yes. No, we go out.
Yeah, no, we're not to that. I'm asking before that. Number 10 says next steps. Are there any next?
The recommendations will be presented to council next Tuesday night for
Right,
ratification.
to council, okay. Then we can go to number 11 to resume in open council. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word open. We were not in camera. We're in committee of the whole, but not in camera. So we resume in council. Moved by Councillor Coleman, seconded by Councillor Miller. All in favor? Carried. Opposed? Carried. And we're now in council, and number 12 is other business, which should take us till after 10. Are there any items? We didn't add any items, so there are none. In that case, we are adjourned.